Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you might be in the world. Welcome to the Studio Q Show Live. My name is Quinn Jacobson, and we're going to try to get a few people in here this morning, this afternoon, or this evening, depending on where you're at, to chat about and talk about what collodion work, what collodion questions, technical, conceptual, anything we want to cover there. So I'm exactly on time. So it's going to be a couple of minutes to get some folks in here. I just sent the invitation out, so it'll be a minute before everybody gets going, and I'll pull up the chat. I have one viewer right now. So somebody's early, somebody's on time rather. So welcome, and we'll just wait until we get a few people in here and start a conversation. I got a few things we can talk about today. And we can also solicit from you guys and see what you might want to chat about. And I had on the docket, I had a Q&A, some things about workshops. I've been doing a lot of workshops, and I've probably the last half of 2015, I got blitzed with all kinds of inquiries about people, how to select a workshop and who to trust. And you know, the collodion movement has gone so far and so long now that there are folks actually starting to query and differentiate between what kind of workshop, what kind of teacher, what kind of instructor, what kind of material, and really what kind of direction you want to go in when it comes to learning this process. So we may chat about that a little bit. We'll see what comes up on that. Then I wanted to give you a little brief explanation about, I've been invited up to University of Colorado Boulder, which is about 30-40 minutes from here, to do be a guest artist or a lecture. Let me see here. We're going to start searching for a link to join the Hangout. Let me see, Barbara. It should be. Let me just put it here. I'll just put it right back at you here, and you should be able to get in with that. So again, it's been a while. The last half of 2015 was just insane, photographically speaking, and wet collodion speaking, and I just hadn't had time to get a few hours away. It's believe it or not, it's a huge commitment to schedule and take 3-4 hours on a day like today and do this. So thank you for coming in. We have let's see if we can do Q&A, screen share Q&A. I'll open that up as well. If you want to jump in the chat here, you can ask questions in the chat. The Q&A should be all that kind of stuff. So as we get viewers here, as we get people coming in, and they will, we'll just chat amongst ourselves, I guess. I'm gonna try to entertain myself for a few minutes, I guess. But no, seriously, I was just trying to think of there was a few items I wanted to cover today, and being invited as a guest lecturer up at CU Boulder, University of Colorado Boulder, was one of the things I was going to talk about and what that involves. This isn't a residency or anything. I do one-day artist lectures all the time. I mean, all over the metro area here in Denver, all the colleges, universities, institutions, all that. I go and talk and I give my presentation, and it's nice because not only do I get to talk about the technical aspect and the process, more importantly, I get to talk about my motivation and my intention and my ideas behind my work and what my work's about, and I get to show my work, and I get to have people ask about my work. So I become more of who I really am, which is an artist rather than a teacher, although I love to teach and I love to help people along their way. I've been greatly influenced. I've had great mentors and great teachers in my life, and I'd like to pass that on if I can. So there's a lot to consider you know, kind of navigating this artist's career. What does that look like? I was at the Art Institutes of Colorado, or Art Institute of Colorado, or Art Institute of Denver. I can't remember which it was. Downtown Denver there, and it's been a couple of months now, and it was they invited me over there to speak to a marketing class, actually. So that was a unique request for me. I got to put together statistics and how do you want to say? I gathered all my social media up in one spot and broke that down into how I communicate with you guys or with the demographic that I work with. And it was really amazing. I have a reach of about 75,000 people. I have almost 50,000 on Instagram. And then between the websites and the forum boards and the email lists and all that kind of stuff, it's quite a reach. So it was fun to break that down and look at it from more of a business standpoint rather than a, you know, just purely an artistic lecture about where my motivation was creating my work and what my work's about. Although I did that, I also included the marketing aspect. Let me see if I can find out what in the world is going on here. Why we have no people in here. Let me see, why can't I, Google Plus, I invited everyone. Yeah, your circles, everybody share. Come on in, it's open, let's see. Come on in, we're live, let's say that. We're live. So share, everyone should get that. So let's see who we have come in here. It's only 10 after, so. And then last but definitely not least, yeah, people are trying to go in roundabout here again. Yes, Eric, I hope Eric can come in. Yeah, I was just looking at the feed there. Hopefully we'll get some folks in here. Let's see if we can. So, and then lastly, so I was going to open a Q&A, a technical Q&A. People have questions or if they want to show something or have some questions like that. Then I was going to talk a little bit about workshop stuff, like I said, and then CU Boulder artist invitation, what that means, and I don't know, maybe a little bit of insight on how you go about managing that kind of stuff. Okay, let's see. I hope that gets over there. We got a few people trying to get in that. So I just posted the link on the Facebook page, the invite. So if you don't have the link in your email and you're in my circles, you can just click on that. We should start getting some people in here now. We have viewers. We have some viewers for sure. So I know I'm not talking to myself, which is a good thing. Sometimes I do. It's not a bad thing in certain contexts. But so yeah, the Q&A, the workshop, the artists, and then there was one more thing I was going to chat about. Let me pull up my notes here real quick. Oh yeah, the Mammoth wet plate workshop and my personal updates. Part of that CU Boulder's a personal update, but the Mammoth workshop, that was really interesting. It kind of goes along with the second topic of workshops, but it was very interesting. When I put out the other day, I'm helping a local person here. I have you video and viewing, but unable to log in visually to discuss. There's Joseph. There we go. So somebody got in. Good morning. Welcome. Is that who is that? I can't see you. Joseph, you're backlit.
This is Eric.
Eric. Okay, Eric. Welcome. Good morning. Good afternoon. Tell us how you got in, Eric. Tell us how you got in. You're gonna let me see if I can unmute. You're gonna have to unmute yourself.
Okay, there we go. I went into Circles, found you in Circles that you had put we're live link, and I clicked that link.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So, Barbara, if you can hear that, if you can hear us, go into Circles, click the link, and you should be able to get in because I know you're in the Circles. So, we had this ironed out at one time, and then, yeah, it's been a while, so we had a little bit of a glitch this morning. That's okay. Can you send a GH link? Oh. Yeah, Jan, I put the link up on the Facebook invite, actually. I put the link up there. So yeah, back to the Mammoth workshop, Mammoth Plate Workshop. What is that? Large plates, making large 40 by 50 centimeter, 16-inch by 20-inch plates. It is a different experience to do that. So there are some technical issues to overcome. There's definitely technique issues to overcome. So there's a whole bunch you can have go wrong as you incrementally go up in size. So I put that link out there. Welcome, Jan. Good to see you. I put that link out there, and I had amazing response. Like, I could fill 20 workshops with the response I got on that. And I wanted to talk about what that means when people are interested. Now, I'm really curious to know what the motivation behind that is, because we have some feedback here. Welcome, Nicholas. I'm just going to mute you. Good afternoon. Good evening. We had a lot of issues with. Welcome, Isabella. Ciao, ciao. We had a lot of. I had a lot of response on that Mammoth Plate Workshop inquiry, and I wanted to talk a little bit about what that might mean. Now, we don't want to, we want to tread lightly, so to speak, in certain instances in this case, because I don't want to question anybody's motivation. I'm curious to know why it is that people, I can put something online and get 30 responses back almost immediately that said, without question, says, put me in this workshop. It makes me wonder what the motivation is, and I'm curious to know. Welcome, James. Good morning. You are up early at 9 a.m. West Coast time. That people say it's too early for an artist to get out of bed, and I've always wondered what that means. I get up between 4 and 5 o'clock in the morning every day, so maybe I'm not an artist, I guess. I have to qualify that. So, now that we have a few people in here, let me just reiterate. I wanted to welcome everyone, and I know it'll grow as we go on. We'll probably fill the video chat up here, but you're always welcome to, the group chat is on the side here. There's a Q&A here that you can ask Q&A like Jan just did a minute ago. Or you can do the chat, and we can, if you don't want to go on air, you can just type your questions or comments or whatever there. But welcome. It's good to see everyone, and I hope we can do this on a more regular basis. I was saying at the first when I opened the broadcast up, last year was really, really crazy. The end of 2015 got insanely busy for me, and I wasn't able to find a few hours, even in a month, to be able to do this. Because it does take time, we like to sit here and shoot the breeze for a couple hours. Hey, welcome, Barbara. Good job. So we have a kind of an agenda, not really an agenda. I don't like to put an agenda on these things. I like to open it up, and we can have any discussions we want to have. But for the sake of moving the conversations forward, you saw that list I had there. I wanted to share first Q&A, and it can be technical, whatever we want. Anybody can join in on that. If you have a burning question about a chemical or a technique, or I did this and this went wrong, what's going on there, we can look at that and we can address some of those. And then secondly, I was going to talk a little bit about workshops, and I was just mentioning the Mammoth Plate. The last part of 2015, I had more workshop inquiries than I've ever had in 15 years of doing this. and I'm curious to know both. I understand the continual growth, and believe me, thank you everyone, those that have supported me over the years, or new supporting me, buying my books, or helping me, you know, navigate my way through this in the business side of things. I appreciate that, and don't ever think that I don't appreciate it. I do. I'm greatly thankful for that. So thank you everyone for supporting me. But it's really interesting to me to look at the growth of this, and to be in a position where I can kind of feel the market. Everything kind of goes by me in one way or the other. I either have someone firsthand or secondhand someone telling me about. I mean, there's rarely anything in what collodion that people, and thank you for it, that people don't let me know what's going on. So I've got a pretty good handle on the pulse of this movement, and it definitely is a movement. And I understand the growth to come and learn wet collodion from someone who's been doing it for an extended period of time. I think that is a very valid justification for that. But then there's maybe a second part to that, and that's the part I wanted to talk about, and maybe a bigger part. And the bigger part may be, who is the right teacher or instructor for me? And that's really what and that's the conversations that I've had the last part of 2015 were about that. I don't want to give out any names here. It's not offensive or anything. I just don't. I haven't cleared it with people that I talked to. I got a phone call a few weeks ago. A very prominent photographer in New York City. You'd definitely know this person, who this person works for. Let me put it that way. Called me up and said, "Hey Quinn, I took a workshop from you years ago, and I'm just trying now to get back in it, and I don't know if you remember me or not." And come to find out, I was really puzzled. I mean, that's not unusual, right? I mean, I've taught a lot, and there's been a lot of people come through my studios wherever I've been in the world. And so I'm trying to put these pieces together. My wife's always telling me what a great memory I have with, how do you keep track of all these people, and how do you do that? So my wife ran through my mind. I said, man, I'm going to let her and him down here. Who is this guy? And I was trying to connect the dots, and I couldn't connect the dots. And come to find out, this guy did not take a workshop from me in the past. He was confusing Studio Q with someone else or something else around him. And he was just saying, hey, just get me in a private workshop in the next couple of weeks. I want to come out and learn. And I stopped him and I said, I'm going to have to think about this, because I don't right now recall who you are, and I'd like to know who you are so I know where you're at and what you're doing. And then secondly, I wanted to talk to him about, am I the right instructor? Because I haven't, knock on wood, I haven't ran into this yet where someone that's actually taken a workshop from me contacts me again and I don't remember them. That's although I am getting older, that would be fairly rare for that to happen. So I was dubious about it, and I said, let me figure this out. So after going through everything then I got off the phone and looked through all my records and stuff, and no, in fact, this guy I did not teach him. So I got back on the phone with him. I said, you must be mistaking me for someone else. And I tried to figure that out. We couldn't figure that out. And he said, well, just get me in a workshop if you can. I said, well, I'd like to know if I'm the right person for you. Tell me about what you're doing or what you want to do. And rather than having that conversation, he didn't quite grasp what I was asking, I don't think. And what I was asking is, am I the right teacher for you? Not everyone. I'm not the right teacher for everyone. And that person over there is not the right teacher for everyone. And that person isn't the right teacher for everyone. That's why there are so many teachers. And if how do you find the right teacher? That's the real question that I'm asking, right? So on this workshop question, how do we find the right teacher to learn this process? You don't know how many people, and I hope some come in today. I didn't direct them or ask them to or anything, but I hope some people come in today that's had workshops from me, and we can talk a little bit about how my workshops are constructed versus other people's workshops. And I use this term workshop loosely because we have to define that word before we have conversations about it, first off, right? So what is a workshop? I've had many people come here, take a workshop from me, either an intro class or an advanced class, and they walk out of here and they say, I've never experienced anything like that. And I've had people that's taken 2 and 3 and 4 workshops before and came through my workshop and said, this is very unique and very different. What makes that very unique and very different? I think a lot of it is where you're at personally and what you need to learn and how you need to learn that. And that's what I try to specialize in. I know some other instructors have poked at me a little bit about screening people that come into my workshops. I'm only screening them so I don't waste my time, their money, and their time coming to my workshop. That's the only reason I'm screening them. And I'm not really screening them. I'm trying to find out if I'm the right teacher for them. So just like buying a car, you don't just go out and say, that's got 4 wheels and an engine and it runs, I'm going to get in it and drive it. You don't do that with that. So I don't understand why you do that with something so dynamic like a photographic process and say it doesn't matter who teaches it. And I don't mean technical knowledge either. I'm talking about a good fit about where you're at artistically, creatively. You know, it runs the gamut. I have people come into my studio that think they're artists, and all they do is shoot commercial work, but they're artists. They consider themselves artists, and all they do is do fashion or do something in the commercial world that has no validity in their personal expression at all. They're directed, they have art directors, they're told what to do, all of those kinds of things. So let's open that up for discussion. I'd like, if you guys are into it, I'd like to start off with that. Or we can go Q&A. It's your call. I want to mute myself and give the floor to somebody, and anybody can jump in at any time. Is it too early? No one wants to talk? I'm on Mountain Standard Time. Come on. The only one in the panel is James that's got an hour on me. I'm not going.
Oh, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, is it me? Okay. Can you hear me, yeah? Okay, cool, cool. Hi, thank you for having me again, Quinn, and hi to everyone. My first question to you, when you say, am I the right teacher, would you as well consider the student asking, you know, asking that I don't know whether you're the right teacher unless I come through you first, if that makes sense. And the other things as well is the student has the same dilemma, understanding which person will be the best for me, you know. And because I mean, I can only talk to myself, which has been doing collodion for only, I don't know, a year or two or something, 2 years, 2 or something. But I'm constantly learning, so I'm constantly trying to absorb a different mind every time. And I don't ask myself whether those. I mean, I know if those person are good teachers for me as when I listen to them, when I'm trying to understand what they're meaning, and if every time they're going to put something forward, is whether it translates to where I want to go. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say is I understand the whole screening perspective. But at the same time, I think, I don't know, you know what, I spoke to a lot of people, and there's been so many conflicting response in so many things, especially in chemicals, and you should use that, no, actually you should use, and one of the example, a couple of Q&A you did was about varnish, if you remember. We talked about, you know, shellac better than this and blah, 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 and all this. So, it comes back to, you know, who can we listen, you know? Do we listen to yourself because you've been, you know, you've been quite prominent in this world, but can we still listen to other people who have a different experience and this, and that's where, imagine as a student how confusing it could be.
Exactly, exactly. Let me jump in. Those are good points real quick. And what I was absolutely correct. The dilemma is really on the student's side. The dilemma isn't on my side, really, because Now there's two motivations. I think there's a couple of motivations, or maybe more. There are several things that factor into why would you want to teach, first off, right? And so I try to tell people I want to teach because I'm born, I'm an educator, I've taught higher education, I'm qualified, I do all those things on paper in the academic world. But really why I want to teach this is because my own personal experience was so terrible learning this, and so long, and so expensive, and I felt like if I could help the people who connect with me, and we resonate, and I have knowledge, and I can guide them along a path, it will cut months, or maybe a year, or 1,000 or 5,000 euros or dollars off of their journey. I think that's a good thing to do, and it motivated me to teach this, and I wanted people working in it, so I had comrades and peers to work with, and here's the answer to your my answer to your question. So you learn from someone, and then you use chemical A and chemical B in this process, and this person over here is using chemical C and chemical D. Well, should I listen to them or not? And the question, that's a question you have to answer yourself. So if I learned this from instructor A, and instructor A teaches basically a glorified demonstration, doesn't talk anything about chemistry, doesn't tell you how to troubleshoot or look at these compounds from a very in-depth kind of view, so you know how they function in the process, so you can troubleshoot on your own and you understand how to do that. If that instructor A teaches in a very superficial way, that student's going to have to learn that from someone else. And believe me, I get hundreds of people asking me technical questions every month, hundreds of them. And that is a failure on wherever they went to learn this process. And I'll tell you why I call that a failure. Because if you come to my course, and if anyone's going to criticize, and you're welcome to, but you have to do it to my face on this live show, if anyone's going to criticize me talking about workshops, and if you think I need to advertise workshops here, you're absolutely insane. I turn people away every workshop I hold. So this isn't about advertising workshops. This is trying to help people understand how to select the proper instructor or proper teacher to get you on this journey. So if you come and learn this process from me, those 2 days or 3 days or 5 days or however long you come for are the first few days in a very long journey you'll spend with me. Years. I've worked with some people for over 10 years. Today, I'm working with them. I taught them over 10 years ago. So this isn't about 2 or 3 or 4 days in a workshop. This is about a relationship that a person has goals, an intention with their work that they want to get help with. And that's where I consider myself the right teacher for those people. I'm not the right teacher for a whole bunch of other people in motivation and intention. I'm not that teacher. And I was hoping he'd be in today. Kareem, he got into my TAP program probably almost a year ago, the advisor program. He lives in Istanbul. He came in for technical. We worked on technical for several months. We got him up on the technical aspect of it. Then we went into the conceptual process. And now just the beginning of this month, he just had a show in Istanbul about old adding machines and this old technology. And he photographed it in positive on black, on aluminum and glass, I believe. I wrote the foreword for his book, his catalog, and his show, and I helped him through that process. And he had a very successful show. It's beautiful work. That is so incredibly wonderful to me, to be able to help and assist and do that kind of stuff for people. That's far beyond the technical. That's what I mean by the right fit. If you're just in it for the money to teach this process, I recommend you find a different job, because it's not, and to my mind, I mean, the amount of time and energy and money that I spend to do a workshop, I'd have to teach 4 or 5 a day to be profitable, really. I mean,
that's what I wanted to add to what you talked about, finding the right teacher. For my personal opinion, is I went to a couple of them purely because I wanted to have more knowledge. Okay, but what I wanted to give is to give you the behind the scene of how I, as a student or as whatever you want to call it, would look and how would I choose a teacher. Now, mostly now because that's what I do now, is I would look at knowing the person behind the teaching, i.e., is he an artist? Does he produce work regularly? Is he just mainly doing workshops after workshop? And for me, I think it's very important because he allows me to know that the person is constantly up to date to what's happening around, has an understanding of the practice of far more than just how can I put that, at just a portrait. You would probably can be able to look at it at the understanding of outside location work, would be landscape, still life, whatever, but in a broader sense of it. So using photography and the process as opposed to let's just do a headshot close with two nice big lights, and if that makes sense. And that for me was how I know he or she was going to be the best person, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because and the other things as well is, as you say, is the troubleshooting. Is I think, from my point of view, I remember being part of your program. How many times did I wanted to ask question about I made a mistake this or I've lost a plate because the alcohol content was too hard to this to. This is probably the most important. But the one good thing which I didn't find anywhere is the fact that, you know, with your program we did before, we talked about conceptual art, which, you know, I know it might sound quite difficult for some people because it's not something everybody is used to it, but at the same time I think it's an important if you want to take the process and the art of wet plate into another level. So what I was trying to say is just saying that when you ask about are you the right teacher, I think well, I never had your workshop, but I know that you probably will because you already engaged so much with the community, which gives already people saying, well, let's see what you've got to say. And if you have a voice, then there's no reason why someone could not learn from you and go beyond, if that makes sense.
Well said. Yeah, it does. And I agree with that. Thank you for sharing that. I think there is a chasm. There is a space between the student and the teacher, and this applies to anything. And we can apply it to this process for sure. So the students over here, the student first has to initiate. The student has to know what their intentions are with the process before they ever start looking for a teacher, right? So you have to have done your homework and your intellectual work and your academic work and your whatever context you want to put that research in to be able to know this is my course, this is my journey. I'll give you an example of my own journey, my own experience. In the late 90s, I started looking at these old processes. I did some albumin printing in the early 90s and then came back in the late 90s to revisit it. And in the late 90s, I was looking through the MoMA book, the 100 Greatest Photographs of All Time or in History or whatever. It's a Zarkowski book. He ran the photo department or the photo exhibitions at MoMA, Museum of Modern Art, New York, and that whole experience of looking at this old work and saying, wow, this can really speak to, because at that time I was working on projects, and I still do, but it fully formed over the years. I was working on projects about memory and identity. So this process really supported and informed those ideas of memory and identity. So I got off onto these historic processes because of the aesthetic and the course that I wanted to take. I was so specific. Welsh Diamond, it was Archer's protege. You know, Archer, the inventor of the process, one of his proteges was a psychiatrist that worked at the Bedlam Hospital in London. And he made these portraits. He believed in this word, kind of like phrenology. It's called physiognomy. It's a big $25 English word, physiognomy. It means that you can look on the outside and tell what's on the inside. So photographs were perfect. And if you look at my work, I've played with phrenology and physiognomy. I've been influenced by all of that stuff. But specifically, what I wanted to do having had made albumin prints, they weren't my negatives, but having made albumin prints in the early 90s, and then associating this historic process with memory and my identity and all those things that worked out and I made my projects based on, it was natural for me to say, I want to do, he was doing whole plate glass negatives and making albumin prints. So I said, I want to do whole plate or 8x10, whatever. At that time it was 8x10. 8x10 wet collodion negatives and make albumin prints. And that was my goal. That's what I wanted to do. I didn't understand, I didn't realize that really to understand the process like you need to understand it, you needed to do positives first. It was counterintuitive back in the day. They surely didn't learn positives first. But for us in the 21st century, where our attention spans about this long and we contribute about this much time to everything we do, I wanted to learn the positive process first. So that was a very, very long journey, and months and months and months and months of spending money and time and effort before I ever got the first plate. So I started out with the right intentions of knowing what I wanted to do. I already had I was well versed in the history of photography. I had an undergraduate degree at the time, and so I knew I'd worked in with one of the printing processes, and so I knew all about this. So I was on the right track. My dilemma today, though, to your point, my dilemma today is having people come to me and say, I don't know why I want to do it. And that's okay to come into a workshop like that to some extent. But the first hour, the very first day of my workshops, we sit down and I have a little questionnaire. I should send it out sometime. I'd be curious of how many here could get that. I do a knowledge assessment. I want to know where they are chemically, historically, conceptually, visually. I want to know the full gamut. I want to know who I'm talking to. Some people come to these workshops and after 10 minutes the page is blank, or they'll just hand it back to me and say, I know nothing. I know none of this. I know absolutely nothing. So I have a baseline. So when they leave here, they know everything. They can not only answer everything on that, they can go way beyond that. And it's not just teach to test, industrial revolution model of education. This is real personal learning theory, understanding how people learn and understanding that good fit, and setting them off on a journey that they can have a chance to be successful working in this process. And I don't think a lot of people do that, or a lot of people have intention that way. So when people come to me and find, God, you're so intense, what's up with this, Europeans, we all know what Europeans think mostly about Americans. That we're superficial, that we're loud and boisterous, that we're fake and all this stuff. I get it. I lived in Europe for 5 years, I know. But this passion is real. This isn't made up. I want to help people who have serious intention and know that I can help, and not just, I don't care if you want to come and learn the process from me and you want to pay me X amount of dollars, I'll do it. If it's just a transaction like, a drug deal or whatever, okay. I don't like doing that, and I really have issues with that. So when I talk about, and I'm not trying to tell people I'm not the right teacher for them, not at all. And I'm not trying to sell workshops. I'm trying to have a conversation on getting people to think about selecting the proper instructor for you, especially if time and money, if those commodities are in short supply, you want to make sure you pick the right one the first time, hopefully.
But surely when people come to do the waypoint project, surely they must know that it's all about going slower, and attention and detail and knowledge, and
some of them get it, some of them, a lot of them, no. Some of them don't.
I mean, I've been to workshop, to be very honest with you. I've been to workshop where it's very much, here's the thing, I'll show you once, you do it, and then you have fun. And
that's not a workshop. That's a demonstration.
Yeah, well, yeah, I know. I mean, I don't believe in that. I don't believe in that, but I've seen it, and sometimes you just
we've conflated the words. We've how do we say, confused the words. We've confused the words workshop and demonstration. most of what happens in the world today are demonstrations, and sometimes they're glorified demonstrations. They're not workshops, to my mind. To my mind, the workshop is getting down into the real hard details and being able to deliver that and having follow-up content that supports those ideas in that person throughout a month or 10 years. That is a workshop. See? So I'm not just talking about, I do demonstrations around here all the time. Those aren't workshops. Those are, I show people how the process works. They might even pour a plate or do, I mean, that's you know, if I give you a drill, are you a dentist? If I give you a wrench, are you a mechanic? I'm not going to let you drill on my teeth or work on my car because you have a drill or a wrench. That's insane.
No,
so I'm talking about a deeper understanding or a beginning of a deeper understanding of how the process works, your intentions of where you want to go with the process, how the process works so technically you can get there, and then support you through that journey.
No, completely. I'm going to walk away because I think I want everybody else to talk, but thank you for giving the chance to talk. The one thing I was going to say quickly is I'm being very blessed in the community. There's a lot of people help each other, and I think that's a good thing as much as even if not everybody knows everything. I think this is a beautiful thing. Is a lot of people. I've been having some lovely emails about people talking about, oh, you should try this. So I think on the other hand, it's always good to have that as much as obviously the bigger names to be able to have a bit more clarity.
Without question, I totally agree. It's just don't get yourself in trouble with some advice. Know where you're at. Know that you're not doing anything dangerous or stupid, and know that it's just an idea, you know. And some of them are good. I've learned from my students. My students have given back to me, and thank you. That's a great idea. I'm going to change a little technique here. Change this up a little bit, or something that just makes the workflow better or easier. Absolutely, I totally agree with you. I'm talking big picture here. I'm not talking about throw away everyone except the one person that you go. No, not at all. I'm saying have that base, put your rudder down so you can follow that along. So you're not, you know, when that other information's coming in, you can say, okay, yeah, I'll take that, or no, I don't want to try that. So you have not saying like you said earlier, oh my God, what do? I don't know what to do. This guy's telling me that, this guy's telling me that, and that's what happens a lot of times when you don't have a base, you don't have a foundation to work from. Everyone's hitting you with, no, use this, put that much in there, do this, hold it this way, turn it that way, and you're like, oh my God, what do I do? And the only way you can figure that out is to look at someone who's been doing it for a significant amount of time, that has success, like you said, that's in the world, that's proactively working toward that, and find that and pursue that and get a foundation. Then let everything come in and say, okay, yeah, that's cool, I'll try that. Or no, I don't want to go there. That kind of thing.
Very true, very true. But thank you anyway, and it's nice to see everybody else. And hi, Jeff, by the way. I'll let you go. Sorry, guys.
No, great.
Take me out.
So, I wanted to add something.
Me too.
You know, having paid attention to you, Quinn, for a while now, and I think that there's a consistent theme, and one it's about having depth in what you're doing, being mindful, and then this theme keeps coming up in my mind about muses, you know, and that seems to be like this. What's happening now in the community is we're just surrounded by you know, people trying to, okay, for example, some people will learn this process and they're like an instant artist, or you know, they add this kind of, I think, and I'm sure I've been guilty of this at certain times in my life, but they add this whole narrative, a false narrative of who they are, because they can say, oh, I poured a plate and I've done collodion. Oh, I've done collodion before. I've done that before. I know that. And they think they know it. They don't really know it. They just sat in a workshop, or, excuse me, a demonstration for a half hour or 2 to 3 hours, and they brought home a plate with it, you know, a plate home with them, And I mean, I know that my experience, and listening to you, I feel that you want more than the surface. You want more than just even a language. There's a lifestyle here. There's a whole bunch of stuff happening which goes on for decades, and this is where I'm kind of at. I mean, I'm listening to this. I'm like, I'm going to be poor for the rest of my life because I'm just not. I can't do it just for the money. I can't do it for that surface reason. I want to connect with the people that I'm working with.
Yeah.
I want to be able to offer them an opportunity to see further than what's in front of them. And if at some point in time where I can do something other than demonstration, which is I can do a demonstration really easy. I met with somebody yesterday and about teaching, and they wanted me. They were like, "Well, can't you do this?" I was like, "No, not really. I mean, I can bring some stuff in, and if you have this, if you have what, I can make some plates. I can do that, but that's not really what I want to be doing, because it's not I can't do it. I'm not teaching them anything. I'm just showing them."
I think what you're talking about, James, and thank you for that. Those are good comments. I think what you're talking about is a relationship, and for me, it's always been about. It was probably, I don't know, 10 years ago. I had this kind of epiphany that I realized at that time that this process. There were basically 3 of us teaching the process at the time, and this process was going to explode. I saw the writing on the wall. I'm an entrepreneur. I can move in business quite fluid. I'm pretty fluent in business. I can make my way, and I saw that writing on the wall, and it was really strange. One of the first thoughts that I had, or initial thoughts that I had, was that there's going to be a long time period, a long stretch of time, that I'm going to have to hear and see incessantly these basic things over and over and over and over and over and over again, until it's so worn out that I will have to say we need to move from the milk to the meat. And the idea of these panels and these get-togethers, I hope, personally, are the first steps in moving beyond the mug shots, the 3 pairs and the doorknob, and oh my God, something turned out on my plate, look at me, I'm fantastic. And great, you are, if you're just learning the process. But if you've been in this game for 2 or 3 years, I would hope that you'd want to, like James says, move beyond that and venture out a little bit and really stretch yourself. And I've been guilty of it. This landscape project is killing me. It's the most difficult thing I've ever done in my life. It's the biggest stretch in my life photographically that I've ever done. And that's a good thing. I want to struggle and fight and have failures, and I know I'm growing. If you're just sitting there comfortable and you can pour a plate in your studio and think about what the weather's going to be today and not even really give a shit, pardon the French, it's time for you to either get out of the game or move on. And move on to something that's challenging, that will force your mind and your heart into these new uncomfortable places. And the first thing of doing that is I found it's not technical, it's conceptual, it's theoretical. I don't know what I want to say. I don't know what I want to do. I have nothing to say. I have no interest. I want to copy or emulate other people and try to ride on those coattails and get praises and likes and accolades. That's the first big dilemma, is I have no idea what I want to do. Yet I want to make things. I want to make photographs. Make photographs. Figure out what you want to do then. And don't just keep making photographs without knowing what you want to do. I think that's the big pitfall. I really do. Dale's not in here. I got to get Dale in here. Sorry, guys. Anyone else want to chime in on this? I think it's a great conversation. Eric?
Yeah, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay. So I actually for about 10 years, and there's a comparison here. I came to the gym the first time. I had a trainer who was very passionate about the sport and understood how difficult. This isn't something you just come in and just half-ass around. You've got to be dedicated to it. It seemed like the first week I was there, he was doing everything he could to keep me from coming back. And that was a way of saying, well, if he keeps coming back, then he's serious about this. So I think the whole thing about intensity and the way you might be as a teacher is not a bad thing. I think for something like this, I think people want to work for it and want to work to be good at it. And if it's just something that they take, you know, lightly, then maybe this isn't the right thing for them. And I think a teacher that respects the craft is going to make it a little more difficult, maybe, for their students. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think.
Yeah. What do you think about the conceptual portion? Like people struggling with what they want to do, and like James even said, they'll make up a fake narrative, or they'll say, oh, what's hot or trending out there, and let me get on board with that. They have no passion or no skin in the game. They're just emulating. You know, influence is incessant, so I understand that, but they're basically just emulating someone else. What do you think about the conceptual portion, not just the technical?
Yeah, for me, I think photography lends itself, especially now with digital photography, it lends itself to a lot of dilettantes and people that they just want to jump in and make something pretty. Maybe they don't know yet. I think for some people, though, I try not to be too harsh on them. But
he broke up. They froze on us, didn't he? Those damn Alabama internet connections. Eric, are you there, brother man? I hope he comes back. Somebody else jump in here.
You know, something.
Oh, there he is. Eric, you there, buddy?
Okay.
Say that over again. You're not on a dial-up, are you, Eric?
It feels like it right now. I changed my bandwidth to lower. Is that
that's better.
Helping?
Yeah, say that all over again, if you will.
I don't know where I lost.
Start over. That's fine.
For me, I had things from a philosophical background that I felt that I wanted to express about history concepts. I wasn't really sure yet how I was going to do that, but I needed someone that would teach me the technique and be someone that I can continue to call, and that's a key thing for a teacher. If they're just going to teach you the technique and then you never hear from them, then that's somebody who's just trying to make some money and just churn out, you know, these classes. I think it's someone who cares about the craft will continue to help you when you're having issues, or maybe if you're struggling to find a way to maybe deal with something conceptually, but the knowledge possibly of the teacher. Sometimes they can't help you with concepts. I mean, I know a lot of people in this 2 years that I've met that they even teach, but they're not strong on conceptual. They put people in front of the camera and take quarter shot portraits, or they do reenactments, and that's fine too. You're doing what I think this second, that third year, where people start to, once they master the technique or become competent, they're able to really come. It's what's behind the camera, not what's in front of it,
Yeah, totally. And I think you made a good point there. I think that the emphasis here is when you're looking to get into a process, and even if you don't have all the details, if you have some concepts, and when we sit down and have this little meeting, when I do mine, we introduce ourselves, we talk a little bit, who I am, where I'm from, what I do, what my goals are, and what I want out of this workshop. Because some people they literally say, I want to be able to teach this workshop at some point in time. So I give them tips and tricks and ideas to try to conform to that. And by the way, welcome Dale, and welcome Mark Zimmerman. Thanks for coming in. That's awesome. But you made a good point there. If you have an instructor or a teacher that just does the technical, and they're fantastic at the technical, and you get everything you need out of that, I say go to that person or those people and learn it that way, and then work with someone else on the conceptual or work with someone else. But don't get caught in the trap of learning the process and then just stopping anything further than that. Because, you know, we are coming to this kind of, we are approaching this change in the process, I think. We are approaching this place where you're not just going to be able to put up any old plate and get 1 million likes or accolades or Instagram likes or whatever you're trying to do or whatever what happens. I think people are beginning to look deeper and more critical of the work. And someone said something very profound the other day. They said, yeah, it would be very interesting to take what collodion photographs and the content and photograph that same content in digital or film and post it and see what kind of response they get, you know? And it's true, because the aesthetic has great power. The aesthetic has, I always say, like, when somebody grabs you by the throat, it throttles you. It just demands that you look at this. It demands that you pay attention. And that's a beautiful thing if you have something to say. If there are a bunch of milk crates and a doorknob and this and that, I mean, for a technical exercise, 2 thumbs up. Work on that. But again, when you cross that boundary of where the technical is no longer an issue and you've got a good handle on it, start working on doing something with that process, whatever you came into the process with, or as you develop, you know, like Eric said, if you have some general ideas and you're making images and you're learning the technical and you're on the milk for a little while, but then you got to get off that milk and get onto the meat somehow. Because what we're severely lacking in this process, and we're all in this process, man, we're brothers and sisters here, we're all together. What we're severely lacking in this process is direction on making meaningful work, like producing bodies of work that we can say, oh man, you got to go see that show in Istanbul, you got to go see that show in LA, you got to go see that show in Toronto. You know, I mean, meaningful power. Everybody's got stories. Everybody's got something to say. It's just you need to find what it is that you're passionate about, ask those questions, and if this process is appropriate or not. You know, people are honest with me. They'll come into some of the workshops and say, what do you want to do with this process, is one of the intro questions. Right? What do you want to get out of this? And some people say, I just want to know if it's a process that I want to work in or not for what I'm doing, and I don't know if it'll work or not. That's a fair question to ask, right? It's a legitimate reason to be in the process. Not to say, oh, I'm going to take these photographs from this workshop and publish them in a magazine because they're collodion and there are doll heads and bottles and it doesn't matter. This editor flipped out and it's something new and they're completely meaningless. That's what's getting us in trouble in this process. That's going to be our downfall. That's going to be the stuff that you're going to be lumped in with when you're actually doing meaningful work. You're going to get lumped in with that noise. I don't know if you realize that or not, and why I'm constantly talking about it, because I'm constantly being lumped into that noise. It takes a lot of work to separate yourself out. To the layperson looking online at a collodion photograph, they don't know you from me, from Adam, from anyone. I mean, it's just all the same. So it takes a lot of effort and a lot of work to separate yourself from the noise or the meaningless stuff. And so as we work together as a loose collective group, everyone working in the same process, we should inspire and help one another, right? We should be encouraging and help one another. Hey, you know, Jan, your project is interesting, but I have these questions. Hey, Dale, that's a great idea, but have you thought of this, this, and this? Hey, Mark, those are wonderful plates, but, you know, whatever it is, we need to be encouraging and uplifting and try to help people build those stories, those narratives, those ideas, those questions, those concerns to bring it out in full, to kind of self-actualize photographically with their idea through this process. Because if the process fits the idea, It's just a matter of the execution. What's the best execution of this? How do I do this? And you need feedback for that. You can't work in a vacuum or on an island with this. You need meaningful feedback. And that's what I've tried to give over the years. I've tried to be honest. I've tried to be serious, and I can be lighthearted at certain times, not all the time, but I'm not that stiff of a guy. I can loosen up a little bit, but I've tried to be serious about these ideas, because that's going to be our downfall. We're all going to be lumped into this. No collodion sign, right? We don't want to see any collodion work. There are some galleries doing that now, believe it or not. We don't want to see any collodion work. So, it's up to us. This is our community. We can let it slide by and not, or we can come together and support one another and help one another. And I've seen some of that, and it's beautiful, but I'd like to see a lot more of it. And I'm not just talking about in your own country or even on your own continent. I'm talking about globally. We have this stuff. Look, we're sitting here from all over the world.
Quinn, can I jump in here?
Please.
Yeah, sorry. First of all, sorry for my tardiness. We had some snow last night with ice, and it took me a while to get a Boy Scout cabin open. So anyway, the question I have, you just mentioned you're seeing some galleries now that are saying no to collodion. I'm curious why they're saying no to collodion.
I think simply for the fact of the same reason we're talking about. I know you missed some of the dialogue, but we're just talking about coming into workshops and how you pick an instructor, why you'd pick this particular person over that particular person, and what your intentions with the process are, how deep you want to go, how involved you want to be, and do you have support after you take that workshop over a certain amount of time or over your lifetime to develop those ideas and projects. I think what's happening, see, 10 years ago, I could take any of my plates anywhere, and people would, I could have published in anything I wanted. It didn't even matter, right? This was so unique and so different and so crazy, nobody doing it, that the world was my oyster. I didn't exploit that. I had my first show in 2006. My first show. 6 years. I mean, come on. I could have exploited those years before that completely. They're rejecting. They're talking about not showing collodion work because of the superficiality of it. Because it's just writing on the process itself. It has no.
I'm sorry, Quinn, but to editorialize on that, I understand what you're saying, but to editorialize on that, if I have a curator that's saying no before they see the work, then I'm going to seriously question the authenticity and the professionalism of that curator. The medium, and I will go to my grave saying this, and I've debated and argued it many times. Am I a collodion artist? No, I am not. Am I an artist? No, I don't think I am. Despite doing this, being a photographer for 30 years, I don't feel I've created a body of work yet that I could call myself an artist, because I've been a commercial photographer. It's only now, after 30 years, that I'm starting to produce work that I want to produce for reasons that I want to produce them. And for the curator that says no before they even see the work, I would, quite frankly, I would not show them to my work.
And Dale, I understand that, but you know what I'd say? I'd put it back on us as the community. We've put so much garbage out there. If these galleries and these curators are so turned off by it, that's our problem. They should be elated over it. They've just seen so much garbage already. They can go online and see it. They don't need to have it brought to them. Have you heard?
Fair enough. But
about nudes and landscapes? How many galleries want nudes and landscapes? Why are they immediately rejecting that? Why?
Well, no, that's a fair question, but I would throw it right back and say, are those same curators saying no to photography?
Well, there's a lot of that going on too.
Yes.
Yes. No, I'm completely with you, Dale, and I agree to a certain extent. And I'm gonna err on the side of being conservative and say I think there's some burden on us as a community. I mean, we are responsible for this. There's no head honcho guiding us, right? There's no direction from above. This is it. Here we are in this panel in the world sitting here. This is us. We can do with this process and esteem and elevate it or drag it down into the dirt and make it like everything else that just quick and easy and pissed on, you know?
I don't think this is anything new either. I think that, you know, from what I'm hearing, like, okay, so there's a lot of Facebook groups that I have deleted in the last month. And part of it is because I'm like, you know what? I don't want to be Ansel Adams. I'm not interested in that. And you have this whole entire huge community of people that want to replicate Ansel Adams. I've stood in a lot of the places that he took his photographs. I took really bad photographs to try to emulate it. I'm done with that. Once I started trying to take my own photographs, once I went off the beaten path and you know went on a hike and I took some great photographs. Anyway, so I think that this goes back to this whole thing about the muse and about people trying to, you know, kind of flocking to this, you know, it's like a gem. You know, they see a gem, like, oh, I want that gem. I want that. But they have no tools to get that. And when they if they do have it, it's just a what's that fake gold?
Yeah, fool's gold.
Yes. And I think that's more. It's a little bit more about that. Galleries, you know, I've had some situations where I've met with gallery curators in LA, and well, I mean that already says a little bit. But you know, I walked in there and I was like, I have nothing to offer this gallery. I said, there's nothing here. This is all sellable, like easily sellable work that all the ex-rock stars are going to come tonight to the show and see and pick up for 10 grand, and that's it. And they put it in their kitchen or their living room, you know. And I have some kitchen, you know, kitsch type stuff, but you know, I want to offer something more. In fact, everything I'm doing right now is all project based.
That's awesome.
It's all like every particular thing that's happening. I'm like, okay, how many images am I going to make of this? What am I trying to say? You know, what's happening within me that is inspiring me to do this? Is it because you know? And I ask questions. I mean, you know, Quinn, a few times on Facebook, I've said, hey, I did this thing. I'm excited about it, but there's something not working right. You know, I think I asked you about a month ago. Says, is there any way possibly of shooting an American Indian and have it not be appropriation?
Yeah.
You know, and because I was like, I really felt a desire to try to connect with the damage that we've done. And how do I do that? How do I carry a message? Collodion, as a white guy, and this is not going to work. You know, like I just needed to step away from that. You know, I was at Photo LA.
There's some baggage to unpack there, let's say.
Yes.
Isn't it funny? And that's a good point, James. Isn't it funny? We can. Why is it that in photography, in this medium, why is this the only medium that we can get away with not telling a story? If you go to a movie, if you read a book, if you listen to a song, why is it that this is the only medium that it's okay to be random and abstract and strange and incoherent, if you will, to a large degree, or make things up? Why is it that movies have to have a beginning, middle, and end, or some construct thereof? In books, you know, you don't open a book up to a 400-page book up to page 300 and start reading. There's, you know, why is it that we get to do that and make pretty pictures? And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm just saying if we want to move beyond this idea of exploiting the true potential of this process with each individual vision and potential of it, we need to get away. I think we need to get away from those kinds of random, you know, technical exercises. I mean, that's just my opinion, but I think it's not fair for someone who's well versed in the process to be making, you know, photographs of, you know, when. I mean, they can make photographs of anything they want. I'm just saying that I think it's a bit cynical to treat the process that way for how much it has to offer. I think that's.
I have a comment.
Yes.
So just in the last few months, there have been 2 people in Birmingham that have started doing wet play, and this is small city, and just out of one of them I know, and I think she may have actually done a workshop with you. I highly respect it. I really like her work, so I was actually happy to see that, and like very interested to see what she does with it. And then 2 other people whom are just kind of doing the traditional thing, and I had this that I did this, but deep down I was feeling kind of covetous of it, like, oh damn, now everybody's doing it, and I had to wrestle with that for a night,
Yeah.
And then what I really came down to was in the end, there's no, the genie's out of the bottle here. There's no holding on to this for special artists.
No.
We can't just wait and say, I'm only going to teach someone that I think, is, the next, great artist or whatever. It's out there. Everybody's doing it now. And so now I feel like I have to look at it the other way. Well, embrace that. Get as much as that out there as possible so that we're no longer looked at and pigeonholed strictly by the force of the aesthetic medium.
Yeah.
Now it's not unusual for someone to see a collodion image, so now they're asking, well, what image am I looking at? Why is this special? Why, it's no longer just that it's collodion. It's
That's good.
What kind of artistry am I getting there,
That's a good thing. That's evolution to my mind. We're working behind that, beyond those kinds of things. And people they've asked me in the past, they said, well, you could have been like one of less than a handful of people. Why did you start teaching it? Why didn't you keep it for yourself? And I know Nicholas is going to like this. I said, because I'm not French. Does that make sense? I'm teasing you. I had to throw that out there. No, because you know what? I think when you have a beautiful thing happen in your life, when you have a life transformation, if you get religion or you find God or you find whomever, you're not going to keep that to yourself. You want, especially, I mean, you want to share that. I'm probably way idealistic, and I'm sure there's a lot of you. We have some viewers here. I know they're going to be thinking, yeah, you're completely idealistic. But when I started teaching, I did it for the motivation to cut all that time and energy and money off, a kind of an altruistic thing. But I really did it for myself. I did it because I wanted peers to work with. I wanted to see what other people could do with this process. And there's only been a handful of times over all these years that I can look and say that I see that. And it's not me that they're trying to impress. I'm just saying I'm surprised working with so many people and professionals and artists that we're not more beyond this kind of superficial stuff now. It's 2016. Another impetus of this is I'm going to try to do these shows on a regular basis and try to keep this in our minds and have a place that we can congregate once a month and talk about this and then try to help and evangelize. I'm not trying to denigrate or be mean to people at all. I want to help people. I really do. I want us to move beyond, because if I help people, I get help. And I think that's the way we should look at it. And I think we should honestly look at helping one another in a very meaningful way. Like, hey, we've got a project. We've shown work on here before. We've had people come in and show work. I think that's a really wonderful thing to do. Get feedback and find out what's going on in the world. And be constructive and nice. This doesn't have to be a negative, name-calling thing. Once we get face-to-face, it's not, we don't have that, anonymous Facebook commentary and all that stuff. So it's a good environment for that. So I hope in 2016, one of my goals in 2016, wet collodion wise, is to try to help raise that bar a little bit and see more and more people evolving in the process and getting shows and connecting with other artists and doing exhibitions and working together on all 3 continents, Europe, Asia, and America, North America, South America, Central America, wherever, and really bring kind of this idea that we have, this is our process. We have to be responsible. how the galleries in the world and the viewers see this stuff. We're responsible for it, you know. And to Eric's point, I'm as guilty as any of them by proliferating this process. I just a few months ago I just taught my 100th workshop, 100 workshops. So, and I know I taught almost 1,300 people in Europe between 2006 and 2011. So yeah, so it's on us, guys.
Can I ask a question? I just wanted to ask you. You know, you're talking about what's going on in America and people saying no collodion and everything. You've been in Europe, and I just wanted to know, do you think that, I mean, I personally, I don't know much, but I personally don't seem to see that in Europe, like in Spain and Denmark and, you know, Scandinavia, France and UK. I don't really seem to see that. They seem to, you know, embrace it more. Or is there, do you think, because America has such a condensed practitioners that maybe...
Well, let me ask you this, Nicholas. When did Europeans start making wet collodion images?
Well, well, an Englishman created it, so I guess.
Yeah, I mean, contemporarily speaking.
Oh, sorry, I've got absolutely no idea.
When I arrived in Germany in 2006, you know how many people were working in wet collodion in Europe?
Probably very little.
Take
10 or something.
I'll give you one guess.
10. Oh wow. Okay. Okay.
0.
Wow.
So when I started teaching there, everything that stemmed off from there'd been academics that came to universities and did demonstrations for conservators and things like that, but not practicing artists working in collodion. So my point is Europe is a few years behind America on seeing this, right? So there's a little tiny bit of lag time. You will definitely catch up. What you're experiencing now in collodion is what America experienced in 2007, 2008, 2009. Wow, so that influx and that exposure, Europeans usually take a little longer. They're usually a little more project or at least conceptually oriented. So when they present to galleries, they have some basic concepts of work. Americans tend to not do so much of that. We want to ride the coattails. A lot of times, not always, but we want to ride the coattails on the superficial stuff, the initial aesthetic of it. Get in with that.
That's exactly what I wanted to say. And I know that you talked about the whole doorknob and all those things. It's difficult to hear that. I guess someone would take a picture without thinking why they would take a picture, apart that it's pretty and all this, unless someone say, I would like to commission you to take a picture of a key and it's for me, and that's fine. I guess there's a modern practice business.
Called commercial work. That's called commercial work, right? I mean, that's
absolutely. But I want to put myself in the cauldron there, because I recently did a piece of work which I was asked to do, which the specific was very simple. It needs to be at a certain size. So I did many plates, and I really thought hard about it. I did want a landscape for many reasons. I did want certain things, blah, blah, blah. As I thought about it, but I ended up doing something which is very still life based. But when I presented, it's interesting, the gallery, because I've just been taken recently by a gallery, and the gallery looked at it and said, oh, this is beautiful, because of the aesthetic of it. Yeah. But actually, I put on the front of them my artist statement, because for me that was the important thing, that piece was not about a beautiful feather or beautiful seashell or anything. It was I worked on it because of the immigration crisis we have in Europe, and there was a whole idea behind it, and suddenly the dynamic changed. Now, I had a show recently and it really well, and people asked me about it. Now the thing is, I think that eventually, if you're going to do a doorknob, let's say, people will come and question that. And I think if you're going to do it, I perceive the way I look at it, if someone say I do it because this it's from my grandmother, or there's a story behind it, then I will respect it. If someone say just because it's beautiful, then I will not take it. And that's what I was trying to say is I think some people find it straight away and some people don't find it.
Yeah.
But I wonder whether sometime when I look at some work online, sometimes I get this reaction, which is, I'm not sure about it, but sometimes the narrative is not necessarily clear, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
And I don't know whether it's a European thing or not, or you know, and it's difficult because I'm not in the States.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Well, here it's an interesting question or comment. Here we have more of a. You guys have heard me. You guys have heard me say this before. In the 19th century, there was a legitimate movement called art for art's sake. Does anyone know that movement? You know about that movement? Yeah.
Yeah.
It just like any photographic movement, it's a response to another type of photography or whatever was going on at the time. And what art for art's sake basically means is, no, you're not going to make me put context to this photograph of this cup. It's a beautiful blue cup, and that's all it is, and we're going to appreciate it for its beauty. That's art for art's sake, right? There's no narrative, there's no story, there's no context. It's basically what most people do today with collodion. It's art for art's sake, meaning I don't really have anything to say with this work. It's just really beautiful, like you're talking about. And that's, you know, if you want to work in that movement and you're valid and all that, I guess that's okay. But I see today where we're driven, and if you look at any of the technology and any of the media, we're driven by stories. Our lives are stories. The culture we live in are stories. Everything is a story. And the only way to participate as an artist in life for me is to tell my story. And that's what I do. I tell my story using photography, using this specific photographic process I've selected because it informs my work. It holds that table up like I talked about, those 4 legs: identity, difference, memory, and justice. Those 4 legs always support my work. Everything I do revolves around those 4 words. So for me, it's easy to see that storytelling or telling your story as an artist is more intriguing to me, to my mind, for the viewer to learn stories about my concerns about my identity and otherness, how we treat people who are different, how we view people who are different religions, colors, whatever, versus a pretty vase. I've had a lot of workshops here, but the last one I had a few days ago, as you can imagine, I have work all over my house, right? I have photographs hanging all over my house. And I've got a beautiful, basically it's a landscape. It's a platinum palladium from a collodion image. And it's hanging on the wall. And I say, come here, guys. And we walk up to it. I got a long hallway, and I got a bunch of work hanging up, kind of like a little miniature gallery. And I walk up, and I said, let's talk about this photograph. Oh, that's beautiful. First question, what is it? It's platinum, technically, what is it? It's platinum palladium. Next question, oh, from what? Collodion negative. Oh, and anything else? Oh, it's beautiful. Okay, anything else? Wow, I really like the borders on that. Okay, anything else? We just stand there. We're riding this out. We're going to stand here. We're going to stand here and look at this photograph. And the conversation ended after the technical. It's beautiful. It was left at that. Then we walk to the next piece, and it's a landscape image, and it's Skull Mountain, where 175 Arapaho were murdered by the U.S. government. It's a beautiful teepee image, beautiful teepee mountain image. Colors, it's collodion. And I say, look, oh, that's a beautiful landscape. Then I tell them the story, just like Nicholas just said. And everything changes. This whole discourse starts coming up. Oh, my God, are you serious? And we start talking about this, and we're talking about it. Those conversations went on for 2 days throughout the day, off of one photograph with context and intention behind it.
But maybe what people need, I mean, which is going to be difficult, is I mean, I'm lucky with the gallery because I work with a curator often who she's not afraid to say, what is that all about?
Yeah.
You know, and
Good work.
I guess if you're going to work with a gallery, one of the things you do is your artist statement, which everybody hates doing it. But the more you know what there's a reason, there's a story behind it, the easier it can. And maybe that's it. Maybe people need to start thinking. You know, one of the things is, okay, you're going to do cars. Come back with the picture and a little write-up about it. And maybe people will look at it differently. And I think it's a lot to do with education.
Yeah, I was just going to say, now you become a teacher. Now you're educating people. And why is it, Nicholas, that people don't like to write artist statements? Why? Why don't they like to do that?
I think it's a lot to do with thinking. And to be honest, there's a lot of people out there who don't necessarily have the chance, the money, or the thing in life for them to be able to think that way. That's one thing. I think the other things as well is some people find photography easier to express themselves by using the medium of photography as opposed to actually talk about it. And the other things as well, which I know from meeting someone recently who said to me that he hate the art world where it's all about a lot of talk with using big words and whatever it is. And I kind of understand, because English is not my first language, and you have to relearn about it. But at the same time, I still think that if you're passionate about something, it doesn't matter whether you speak with few words or not. Your work, if you're passionate about it, it will go through. So, right. But I still think it's a good exercise to be able to sit and think, because eventually, I mean, I'm only talking maybe a small bracket, but the people who want to put their work forward have to understand the audience they're going to show it to. For sure. And that audience should never be taken for granted. But at the same time, if you willing to open a dialogue, you need to be able to talk about it. Yeah. So that's my only, reaction to it.
Yeah. And people are afraid. Have you ever asked someone? I do this all the time. If I want to start a dialogue with someone or have a little discourse about philosophical questions, my favorite things to debate in the world are politics, religion, and art. Those are my 3 favorite topics to debate. I love debate. Pardon me?
In France, we had sex and politics and religion as well. By the way.
Okay,
I'm moving to France. I'm moving to France, not Denver.
It's funny, because if I want to start a dialogue with someone, all I have to do is if I'm out making a photograph or however I run into people, one of the first questions I ask when I meet someone is, "Oh, what do you do for a living?" or "What do you do as a profession or a living?" Just superficial light talk, right? "Oh, I'm a plumber." "Oh, you're a plumber?" "Yeah, I work for this company." And "Oh, do you like it?" "Yeah, it's all right." And then the next question is did you always dream about being a plumber? Is this what you really? Do you get up in the morning and say, "My God, blood is coursing through my veins and oxygen in my lungs because I want to go out and do plumbing today"? And they'll look at me, "No, I do it for money." And then I ask them, "Well, what do you do for your own expression, for your own identity? We're human beings. We need to express to connect. We're not robots. We need to throw things out there that resonate with other human beings to connect together as humans, as humanity." Biggest problem in the world today. I can solve all the world's problems right now by having people connect through their passions. And just like we're doing right now. This is a wonderful thing.
But I think the good thing is, and that's the beauty thing about those hangouts, is that I think people, I mean, I remember last time I came on your show, I left, although I had this show, I had to prepare this show.
Yeah.
So much, I've changed so much about the way I presented it. Not because I felt, oh, someone told me better, but actually because I started to rethink about it. Now, you can overthink about it, for sure. But I think what I did is I made a small mistake, which is I realized I needed to open myself to be ready to have a lot of feedbacks, And I did something, and you didn't realize, but I did something. I had a show, and I went back, and I saw a couple of people looking at the work, and I went there and I say, oh, can I help you? I work with a gallery. If you want me to tell you about a couple of artists, I'll do. Knowing I was one of them. And the only reason I say that is because I kind of thought to myself, I got to be, I need to listen to what people say, oh, I hate it, or this is terrible, or this is this. And especially when someone say, yeah, buff. You know, for me, when I heard, as you say, I just feel like, come on, you can give me more than that, you know.
Yeah.
And it was great. I've learned so much about how people respond to it, whether they know about the process or not, if that makes sense.
Right.
But I've learned a great deal, and I think that's the beauty to live. And like Dale was talking about something earlier, which I completely agree about, how we looked at the people and how we can talk about, you know, the work. And I think that's so important to sort of hang up. I think it's a great thing, you know.
Yeah, I would like to dedicate a couple of these this year, just to show work. Like people have, because I think it's great to talk. It's wonderful to have dialogue, but I think it's even more important to show work and give people 30 or 40 minutes each or whatever to give them a platform, and people can watch and listen, ask questions. I think that's really where we'll cross over that line, like I was saying.
You know, I think it's so important, because the one thing I realize, and I must admit, I'm sometimes I go less and less in the Facebook group, purely because I think they come to a stage where I feel myself only liking something. And sometimes, I mean, look, there's guys, I really like their work, and I always want to say something more. But it's true, sometimes you find yourself like, oh yeah, I like, and I don't put as much work as I used to. Not because I don't want to, it's because I just don't necessarily want the like. I'd rather have a discussion. I want someone to be able to say, Nicholas, come on, this is terrible.
Yeah,
you know? But I know nobody would do it because it's a sensitive issue. But you're right, maybe the best way to do it is to say, you know what, let's talk and let's put some work out there and say, look, this is me.
I think it is, Nicholas, for the simple fact, and you guys know this, everyone on this panel knows this. Welcome, Joe. Joe Smiegel's in here. He just joined the chat. You guys know this. The idea of communicating, we're not face-to-face physically, but at least we're face-to-face. At least we're putting a face in a. There's a body here, right? We, for the most part, now I'll probably put my foot in my mouth here. Most people won't come on a hangout like this and troll. Trollers are not really open to hangouts because there's extenuating circumstances. On Facebook and forum boards and things like that, man, you're king poopah. You can sit there and be a type keyboard cowboy and do whatever the hell you want to do, and there's nothing to pay for it. You can sleep at night, I guess. But here's a little different. So I think constructive criticism, showing work, talking about work, giving feedback if you have it, you'd be amazed at what some people have, the insight even a lay person might have on your work if you show and talk about it. But especially a seasoned group like this, to bring work in here, this couldn't happen 5 years ago even. You know? Real special.
I'll put my name out of it. If you're struggling to find people, I'm happy to next time to put my work and you know, because I think that sometimes you need one person to start, and I'm happy to put things out there and take everything.
You got it. You're up. Next time we meet, you're up to show some work.
Quinn, you said something to the effect about constructive criticism.
Right.
I'm not into that. My ego is too fragile. I don't think that's a good idea. Look at Barbara. I mean, she just sits there. You know, you talk about trolls. I mean, there you go. Talk about a troll. Look at Barbara. Anyway.
Barbara's a sweetheart. She's not a troll. She's completely not only on board with the movement, she's a big force behind it.
She is. In fact, she has a fan in me, and she knows it. I looked at her stuff probably a year ago, and I've gone back numerous times to see.
Nice.
Yeah.
You should show us some work too, Dale. You should show us what you've got going on at some point.
Not ready. I'm still in the technical components.
We've got all year.
Yeah.
Mark, you want to get in on this? How about we do Nicholas and Mark next time, and I'll coordinate a date, and for February sometime, and we'll have Nicholas and Mark come in. I think this is probably one of the most constructive things we can do in this group. We can chat and shoot the breeze and all that, and throw our concepts and our philosophies out there. But I think the rubber meets the road when we're showing work and getting feedback. Because I know at some point this year I will share with this group. I'm not going to post it on Facebook or any of that stuff. And my Ghost Dance stuff, I've just not published that, and I'm not going to. But I'll share some of that work in here with this group for feedback and for peer-to-peer review, and nothing public or anything, because I'm still trying to figure out the best way to approach this. I have a commitment next year in Barcelona, June of 2017. I've moved that date ahead. I could not make it this year. They asked me to come, and I couldn't do it. So that project's been moved ahead a year. So that will give me this year to bring work in here as well and show it and share it and get feedback. And I think maybe I'll go the next time after Nicholas and Mark go. And Eric as well, too. Eric, I'd love to have you come in. So let's, if we can, let's do Nicholas, Mark, and Eric next time, if you guys can make it.
Quinn, I just wanted to add
Sorry,
to
Dale, I stole your platform. Go for it.
it's your show. I just wanted to add to Nicholas' commentary when you and he were talking about the artist statement. I'm one of those people. I don't like artist statement. I prefer to work incognito. It's just my style. It's the way I prefer to work. However, what I have learned over the years, and it's not my line, I think it was another Canadian photographer by the name of Freeman Patterson, who I admire immensely as an artist. I believe it was him who said a camera looks two ways. And what I gather from that, as much as you are photographing or making an image of the subject sitting in front of the lens, as a photographer, you have to be prepared to understand and accept the fact that you're also revealing what's behind the lens and behind the camera. That camera truly does look two ways. There's no question about it. And that's why I don't do the artist statement thing. I've done several shows. I prefer to allow the viewer to look at that body of work that I have in a show and say, you come up, you tell me what you see. Rather than
hold on, I want to challenge that just for a second, because it's exactly what we're talking about. I understand that it's tough to expose or reveal certain aspects of you, and especially if you're deeply into a project. But you just said it. You just said it in that sentence that you laid out there. Those statements reveal that camera looks both ways. I believe in order for the viewer to feel and understand the full impact of your photograph, without the creator's input, without your input into that image, that viewer is not going to have any ability to tell you what that photograph's about. Because if the intention of that photograph was made only in your mind, that person cannot read your mind. They need to know why you made it, who you are, and connect those. You need to tie that in and connect it. This is about revealing humanity to me. Making photographs is basically, essentially, revealing our humanity. And if us, as photographers or artists or whatever label we want to put on ourselves, cannot help that viewer understand, and if that's what you're making work for, if you're trying to tell a story or put work out there for the viewer, for the greater good of the world, to tell something, I think it's important that you need to describe that something with the viewer, to the viewer, of why you made that photograph.
You've said several times that the medium, or we live in a world of storytelling, and I cannot rebut that. That's absolutely true. It's absolutely correct. However, at the same time, as a photographer, I also see photography as an art, and as an art we communicate, and photography is about communication. If I put a body of work, 10, 15, 20 images in a gallery on a wall, I want the viewer to come in and look at the first image and follow that line of work, transcend that work, and when they see the last image, they should have the full story. If they don't have the full story, and if they don't understand what I'm communicating, then I'm remiss in the performance of my duty as a photographer in putting together that show.
I want to add to, I think that's, the art world requires a narrative So it kind of, there has to be a little more. Not everybody's going to get it. I mean, I've been in a lot of galleries. I've seen a lot of paintings, a lot of photographs. I have some portraits that, like one of my friends, she's schizophrenic, and I gave her these two bullhorns to hold, and it looks, you know, for anybody, most people are going to know that there's something there, but if they don't hear the fact that my idea was that she was riding the devil every day.
You raise a good point, James.
Know that.
Perhaps the difference here is, and I should qualify, even though I do take photographs of people in my commercial work, in my personal work I don't. I am a landscape photographer. So perhaps when you see my work on a wall, it's going to be coastal erosion, for example, or it might be one that I'm very passionate about is the way we're denuding our landscape of our forests. So it may be about forestry. So you're going to know that theme is going to hit you right between the eyes, and you're going to be able to follow it through. And that's,
but even some other photographers, I forget his name. He goes around the world. He takes photographs of holes in the earth. He went to China and he photographed that huge dam that they built.
Come on now, James. That's a good Canadian photographer. Edward's his first name. Yeah. Come on. I throw it back at you. There you go.
That's good. Yeah. One of my favorite. He was one of my favorite photographers. I mean, you know. However, he also has a very, very detailed narrative, and you need to, and you read about it, and you hear about his experience. You know, he was driving down the highway and he saw this, I think he saw the red chemical corrosion, and he had to stop, and he realized that he had to tell the story, and that became his whole career. So, you know, for me, you learn something about the artist, you learn something about how they're thinking. It also challenges the person not just to take that moment with them. Because, I mean, before college at least, you know, I'd go to a place, I'd take a snapshot, or I'd take a photograph, and I'd take that moment with me. But once I started learning about narrative work, I actually had to have something to say. I actually had to speak to somebody and try to carry a message to them, and hopefully they're going to learn something about themselves, not just about me.
Right.
So.
And Dale, I understand what you're saying, and what I'd add is I'd challenge you on this topic. I'd say, yes, every person that walks through that show, and it would be a lovely show, you put work up, beautiful landscape images, and you're right, a thinking person may go in there with no statement at all, no intellectual work done at all on the work. They're just photographs, right? And they could walk in there, and you could walk up to any of my photographs on my wall right here and do the same thing. And you could say, oh my God, that reminds me of my childhood lake experience, or wow, I remember we were camping one time and I saw that. This is a completely different narrative. We bring our own filters to that work, so without some guidance and context, text out of context is a pretext. In other words, I can pull anything out of any book and turn it into anything I want, right? The rest of the book, the rest of the story, the rest of the movie is there to give you context. And that's what an artist statement does. And I've often said this. If I walked into that gallery and you had your 20 images on the wall, and as beautiful as they are, and no statement, I would walk out. And I would say, until he does his intellectual work, I will not do it for him. Because I have nothing to say about these photographs. Nothing important anyway, because I have no guidance from the creator of it. So I think it's important. Now you can, anyone can put work in a gallery and just say, hey, go for it. Make up whatever the hell you want to make up for it. Or walk up to him, like you said, and say, what do you think? What does this mean to you? To be honest with you and frank with you, I don't give a shit what that means to them. I give a shit what it means to me and why I made it. That's the real thing about making work, is it's your voice, your idea, your question, your concern. And I think when you give that away so easily, you're walking into a trap of what's been going on. And that's the mode of photography. Traditional contemporary photography, that's the mode. You talk about Ansel Adams, well, even he put a little context to that work. But it's just beautiful. It's art for art's sake. And if you say, hey, this is a show about art for art's sake. And if you can't figure out that our mining practices are destroying our Earth and that this is about climate destruction and everything, and if I have to tell you, then you're not going to get it. I think, to be honest with you, that's a little bit of not only a disservice to you and your talent and your work, it's a disservice to the viewer as well, too, because you're leaving out the biggest component, the most important component of the work, and that's context and intention.
And connectivity. You know, that voice, that lasting impression. I think, you know, like, you know, I've been to some movies, and you walk out of that movie, and for a week later, you're still thinking about not just this action-packed scene, but you're thinking about how it affected you. You know, and that to me is a very successful, you know, film in a sense. And the same thing with images. Did anybody, you know, people know Robert Mapplethorpe, you know? So there, you know, I wasn't introduced to his erotic stuff until later, but you know, I was fascinated with this guy and what he was doing in the studio. And anyway, never mind.
That's a good point. It's a good point.
Activity, it's important.
It is, and I'm not saying again, and I want to emphasize this. I don't think I've known Dale for a little while now. We've been working together and doing some things, and he's a very talented, thinking, articulate, intelligent human being. I can vouch for that for sure.
Checks in the mail.
No, I'm serious. You are. I think it's a man, a person with your experience and talent. I think you could go far with your talent and experience in telling stories and the stories you want to tell. I think it'd be a great disservice not to tell us about Dale's intention with that work, because I think, and that can go for anyone. And I've seen a lot of your work already, and I know there's talent out there. I just want to encourage people to exploit that and get the full breadth of it and get it out to people. And I want to help people share their work. I want to do everything I can to get people into galleries, do a group show, do collaborative pieces, stuff that's meaningful and stuff that we're all on board with, and say, man, this is awesome work. This is great, important, serious work, and this needs to be out to the world. And that's my biggest goal, and that's where I want to contribute. Whatever I have to contribute will come in forms of helping other people get their work out there like that, and in turn helping me get my work out there. Jan, you want to say something?
Yeah.
Sorry, Jan's muted. Hold on. 1 second. I'll unmute you.
Okay.
Whoop.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Just swiftly, I wanna ask you firstly. Yeah, maybe another question, because I have asked about how to start to discuss with galleries and offer your, let's say, work, and simply said to make a next step, how to start to get some money from your work, which is very important for you, because there is some motivation behind. I'm now in a situation, maybe you know it from the past, that I'm working, or my job is not a photographer. I'm not professional photographer, but I'm thinking about, let's say, partially work as a let's say, let's call it commercial photographer or something like that. And you have lots of experiences. You know that there is a really hard to split your let's say split your private work, what you like to do, which is sometimes not easy to sell, directly said, because you have some kind of thinking, and you personally have some let's say, how to describe it. You know what I mean? Yeah. You simply said your commercial work is work what is expected from your customer, and you have to do you should do what is expected, and sometimes or quite often people you follow you or can see your work, then criticize, can
Right.
criticize, you know, and it's sometimes very hard to explain people that work as a commercial photographer is really very stressful, and nowadays, you know, that every job and especially photography has lots of competitors, and lots of people are making photographs by themselves. Everybody can buy highly um, equipped
Yeah,
cameras.
everyone
and
can get the cameras and equipment. Everyone can do this, right?
buy
Because
very good equipment and survive as a photographer. Especially my experiences from our country, from the Czech Republic, is really very hard. Yeah, and yeah, the question is how to step into this business if you know that such a life is not easy, and if you live, let's say, two different lives. One line is what you have to earn, you have to pay your monthly expenditures,
Yeah.
and the second line is your way what you really like, and what you would like to do, but there is a really some wall, very thick wall, and you can't go through this wall, and this is really really publicly said the problem.
Right. Yeah, and that's a
And
great question. That's a great question. Let me throw my 2 cents in, then I'm going to open it up to anybody that's experienced this, that's had major gallery shows, and they can tell us about their experience. I'll tell you about mine real quick. I think it's really important to do 2 things. To first distinguish or define your intentions for a gallery show. If your intentions for a show is purely financial, you have to rank them in priority. If I want to show my work because I want to sell work, that's number 1. Number 2, I want to the general exposure. Number 3, I want to try to pick up some publicity, whatever. If you structure that, if you really say, I want a gallery show because I want to sell work, that would have to be in a very different context than what we're talking about. I don't think what we're talking about is selling work per se. I think what we're talking about is actually your first question, which is a very good one. How do you start in to offer the gallery work? Well, guess what? I had my first show in 1991 or 92, and I had my first wet collodion show in 2006. For me, it was all about narrative. So if you approach a gallery and you can't talk about your work, or if you don't have some narrative or some semblance of idea of concept, I think they're going to say, oh, these are beautiful or pretty, but I don't know what they're about, and you don't either, so we're going to have to pass. If you go in there and you have a good narrative, if you can defend your work, you've heard me talk a lot about on these shows a lot about defending your work, meaning that you can talk about it, you can have someone come in and challenge you and say, that's blah, 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 and you can say, well, this is how I see it, and this is my justification for it. If you can defend your work, tell the story, and your images match, and it's not a false narrative, it's not made up, it's real, it's authentic and legitimate, and people will be able to tell if it is or isn't, I would put that ahead of money. And I'll tell you why. Because the minute I never got into this to make money, but the minute I put those intentions of finances to the side, I know it sounds idealistic again, but the minute I put those intentions out of my mind financially, all of a sudden the finances came. Okay? So collectors bought the work, people were publishing the work, I got more attention. Had nothing to do with I want to sell work. It had
Yes.
everything to do. I want to tell my story. I want to talk about these issues and questions that I have about humanity, and it resonated with people. I was able to deliver it, and a certain group of people it resonated with, and they responded to it. And a lot of that was financial. They responded financially. So they purchased and collected my images. They purchased my books. They attended whatever it is on the financial side of it, but that wasn't the #1 intention. So for me, narrative, an authentic body of work that's complete, that I could defend, I could go to any gallery and present that work. And I didn't even do that. They inquired to me. So just what they'd seen, I mean, that was early enough, it didn't take much, but just what they'd seen, they contacted me. But you can do it through your narrative, through your stories, through your ideas and concepts about the work that are clearly defended. That's my position. Anybody else want to chime in on their gallery, how to approach a gallery with your work? What did you do? How did it turn out? Were you accepted, rejected? What happened? Anybody want to chime in?
Can I say something?
Please.
Okay, cool. First of all, I was going to say you're so spot on about the way we look at the money situation. You know, is whether we wanted to make something. There's always one thing I wanted to add, is a silly quote, but something I always think of is, if money is a solution, it becomes a problem.
Yeah.
That's one thing I always think about, because as soon as you become obsessed about it, you lose your eye of the ball on creating in the first place.
Yes.
But I must admit, the quote is from my wife. It's not me, by the way, so don't say it's for me. She loved the fact yesterday. But look, I'll tell you my story very quickly to make it. Maybe I've got an answer for Jan. Is I'm from France, from Paris. I was working in catering in restaurant business for a very long time. And you know, I always had a camera. I picked it up, doing my bits and pieces and nightlife and taking a nice picture lesson. But I knew that I always wanted to be a photographer. And I came to England with no English, and so I had to start again. But eventually, I decided, after having a successful life in the restaurant business, I decided I want to do what I really want to do, which is photography. But I was very aware that in order to, you know, compete with the big boys, the people who are actually talking what they're doing, and at the time was especially films, you know, as opposed to digital, I had to learn again. So I went from, you know, a lot of money to nothing, £50 English pound a month, sleeping in studios and painting white walls, and it doesn't matter what I did as long as I was in a studio. You know, they even thought I was a chef because I worked with restaurant, and I said, if you want me to cook, I cook. It didn't matter, because all I wanted to do is to be able to look at photographers, be next to them, look at Polaroids, pick them up, and come home and say, I might recreate that just to understand the lighting. But what happened eventually, everything's changed from that, obviously, because now I've been photographer, touch wood, for a long time now. But the thing is, coming back to what Jan said, because now my position is a full-time photographer. 50% is I do commercial work in fashion, but the other 50%, especially for the last 2 years, is purely art. So, and because I'm work with a gallery and I do shows and blah blah and all this. But the secret for me is that it's hard work, and be able to shoot every time. Like, not every time, sorry, almost every day. It's work, work, work. With art, it's best, because the one thing I realize with the conversation I've got with curators and galleries is, although they like the work, they invest in the people behind it. Because by investing in the people behind it, they want to know what you're going to be doing next. I just finished a big show recently, quite successful, but I didn't really have the time to enjoy it, to be very honest with you, because all I'm thinking now is, I know tomorrow I'm going back to the studio and I need to come up with something better, or at least something interesting to be able to challenge the people, you know, because you eventually goes to, well, I've seen that, you've done that before, and you're going to do the same thing because you know it works. And so, how to get through it? Now, I mean, I don't know Czech Republic. But for me, I look at it the same way when I arrived in England in the first place. England was a very foreigner's place where they speak a funny language and they drive in the wrong side of the road, you know. But I knew that I needed to understand the language and communicate and understand the traditions and how they do things in order to be able to fit in, as opposed to the other way around. But I saw a small gap in the market, and I tried to look into it and try to understand. Now, I must admit, because of being a foreigner, I don't have the same attitude if you're in the country. Because for me, England gave me the opportunity, and I want to grab it. And I always think there's always going to be someone better than me, younger, smarter. So as long as I continue doing my work and as long as I believe in what I do, it doesn't really matter, because it should inspire me and push me to do greater things. So if I could say for you, and you know what, I remember working in a restaurant late night and the manager giving me a 2-hour break in order to go to an exhibition, because that was my first exhibition and I was crazy. I took on my apron, went to the show, came back, and I worked harder in my profession, you know what, to found what I wanted to do. So when I hear a lot of people who say to me, well, I want to be a photographer, but I always say keep your job because you need the money to support it. But as long as you do the work. Because the thing is, you know, it's like people say, oh, you're so lucky, you've got a gallery now. And I say, well, it's funny how luck comes from a lot of hard work. That's what it is, really. And I should not rest on my laurels. I know I need to continue and I need to do it. And there's a fear behind it, saying, well, it's all good to be on top, but you have to be in, you know, and all this is very important. So I think I would go and continue to do whatever you feel is the right thing to do. And the other thing is, the more you do it, and the more you're active and people sees that, the gallery then will be interested in you, because they say, well, I know that once we sell a couple of plates of yours, then you be straight back at it, as opposed to just say, my goal is just doing a gallery. And the other thing I must admit is, in UK, I'm only talking from UK side, it's easy to get a show. Anybody can get a space, get people in, put a panel and say, I've got a show. But the truth is, I always thought, similar to music, for artists, musicians to go on tour is to give back to the people they listen to the music. But as well, it's a business. So if you're going to be able to think that way, just to put something on the wall, I think it's great, but I think it'd be nicer to have a greater ambition, because eventually you're going to do what you think is going to work. And if a picture of a pen is the next big thing, everybody's going to do it, and you're never going to be surviving on it. So I think what I'm trying to say is you've got to, you know, think. I mean, Barbara was talking about the artist statement, and I think all those things are important. I just picked up a book, but it's a very straightforward book, but it's a book they've got in here called How to Start a Gallery. Okay, now I'm not starting a gallery, but the reason I bought that book is because I want to understand who I'm dealing with. So when I go to a gallery, I can speak the same language. It doesn't matter whether I don't understand the language, and I've got to learn. So what I'm trying to say is, doing one work is one thing, but when you go to the gallery, which I spoke to a lot of gallery, often say people come with their mobile phone and say, oh, I'm a photographer, look, you know, I can do that. And they don't want that. So I think if you understand their point of view, and they hear what they understand the way they look at art and work and everything, you will have the biggest advantage compared to the next person who have beautiful work but will come with his mobile phone. So what I'm trying to say here is, it's possible to do it, and I often think that if you sit down, think a bit more about how you want to do it. This is the way I did it. I just thought a lot about it. Same with when I started doing photography. I didn't take pictures straight away. I became an assistant for 4 years, only because a lot of people say, well, I can do that, I'll take it. And what I wanted to do is understand the business side of it. How do you get clients? How do you pick up the calls? How do you invoicing and this and blah, 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 and all those things, which any business has to rely on. So, and eventually when you're out there, then people say, okay, well, have you got something to say? And I thought, well, actually, I thought out of it, and I've got something to say. And that's my way of looking at it. And the thing about gallery is that I always think it's work in both ways. It's a collaboration. You know, yes, they will sell your work and they will take a percentage and all those things. But if you understand how which way they're going to go and whether we're happy to support you in the way you want to go, then there should no problem. Wherever you are in the world, there should not be any problem. But on the other hand, I mean, obviously, I don't really know too much of where you are and what's going on around in your life and everything. But I truly believe that if you have a talent, hard work, and belief, anything is possible. I mean, I came in England without a word of English, and I just avoid all the French because they all speak French, obviously. And locked myself and read a lot of books and about photography, and that's how I learned English, to be honest. And then, I mean, and obviously I got lucky because I met a lot of people. Oh yeah, and I go out a lot. I must admit, I go to galleries a lot. I go to every different type of medium in art because I think that what I can learn in sculpture or paintings or video art and everything is always related to my work. Because if I go to a show quickly, so if I go to a show and it's terrible because I don't like it, I know I will walk away learning at least two things about maybe the way someone will present the work, or maybe I'll pick up one of those letters and say, you know what, those artist statements with, you know, and I'll be like, actually, that's not bad written. I will write it, or I will look at prices. You know, there's always something to pick up. So I think the more you bathe yourself into this world, the clearer your images will be in your brain, and easier you'll speak the language.
Thank you very much for your very inspiring speech. It's really inspiring, and then gives me motivation to continue what I'm doing. Yeah, this year maybe the 5th year with collodion together, and I started with photography as a child, as I think everybody has its own small camera. And yeah, then 2006, maybe 5, I really started again with photography more seriously. And yeah, 10 years behind me. I'm stick with analog photography mostly. I do now project with my Hasselblad and Foma Film, which is Czech well-known Foma producer. Maybe you know Foma Factory, originally is from the Czech Republic, Foma Film. And yeah, I like this style of work because we know that you have to, it's very important to be different, simply said, because there are tons of photographs and very nice photographs. People like photographs. You know that now latest mobile phones really makes amazing pictures. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, and if you learn a little bit, read few books, you are photographer. Yeah, mobile photographer, professional photographers are also photographers.
Jan, can I ask you a question? I'm sorry to interrupt. I wanted to ask you a question real quick, if I can.
Yeah.
What is your, and I'm going to be brutally honest, I want you to be brutally honest, and I'm going to be brutally honest with you.
Yeah.
What is your intention, and I'll try to frame this so it's very easy to understand. Is your intention, do you want to get into a gallery to make money with photographs, or do you want to get into a gallery to promote your work, or what's the end goal? Why is it a gallery specifically that you're interested in? Is it the financial aspect of it, or the potential for the financial aspect of it, or is there some other reason you want a gallery? Because I actually have a question about the validity of galleries moving on in the future here, you know, for photography, but that's another topic. But tell me, or tell us, what is your primary motivation? Is it financial, or is it to be moving into the art scene, and this is what we do as artists using photographers going into galleries? What is the primary concern with getting into a gallery?
Now when I am, let's say, in a situation that I'm not dependent on money from the photography business, so I really personally have no aim to offer my work for sale, of course.
Okay.
My aim is to show some professionals who really are people who care about selling of art, to show my work, speak about it, explain them what is behind, tell them story. It's not only about collodion, of course. You know that collodion is just a technique we are using.
Yeah. So your primary interest is in making
To
the
get
work
some,
and telling the
some
story.
knowledge, get some feedback from professionals.
Yeah.
To,
So I think Nicholas's advice was great. I think if that's your intention, which is an honest, clear intention, and I think it's a good intention personally, but if that's your intention, yeah, keep your day job, keep passionate and clean and real on your objectives with your work. And I can almost guarantee you, like Nicholas said, if you work hard, I can almost guarantee you somebody is going to pay attention to that work, and at some point in time, whether it's ancillary from the work, the finances will come some way. If you're dedicated enough to do that and work through that without ever having any intention to sell the work. I try never. It's so difficult now, but I try never ever to think about money and photographs. I try to keep them separated like water and oil. I try to do my best, but it's difficult.
Quinn, can I just jump in here for a second?
Sure.
Yeah.
Jan, I hear exactly what you're saying. What you're saying is what got me started and moved me from what we would say in English, from an avocation to a vocation. And the point being is, if you continue to keep your day job to pay the bills every day that we all have, I think that will allow you to free your mind to create work that matters to you without any external restrictions on that body of work. And as Quinn alluded to, I think when that starts to happen, when you're creating the work purely for your own reasons, whatever that might be, it doesn't matter. When you create that work for your own reasons, that's when the work will start to shine, because you have no inhibitions and no mandate to produce anything, to produce work for any other reason than to please yourself. And when you please yourself, you will, by default, start to please others with your work as well. Your message will.
And Dale, what would you call that work that you're making work for other people? How would you box? What label would you put on that? You personally?
How do I make making work for other people?
No. How would you? What word would you use to describe? You just said eloquently, don't let the outside pressure of money influence your work instead. What would you call the work that you are under that pressure?
Oh, that's commercial.
There you go.
That's commercial work. And what that means, Jan, is I have an art director, and I've done this before, and it's cost me clients. I've had art directors standing beside me saying, do this, do this, do this, do this, and do this, and I simply stand back and say, why don't you take the damn picture?
Yeah.
It's commercial work. It's the bread and butter, and I have in the past, I passed them a cable release and said, you take the photograph, I'll manage the lights. You want me to be your assistant, not your photographer. So that's commercial work, and when you're doing that, I don't bite my tongue too well, and it's hurt me. But when you're doing commercial work, I've heard commercial photographers say that they still invest themselves in their work. Yeah, maybe they do, maybe they don't. But I've said for as long as I've been in this business, just photo credits and commercial work don't mean a damn thing. They really, truly, honestly don't. And I've always said, just make sure my name is spelled correctly on the check. And now I'm finally in a position, because I want to. I can honestly say, have I created nice pictures? Yeah, I have. I mean, over the course of time, you have to. But now I'm able to sit back, and Quinn and I have talked about this, and we've intellectualized more than we've talked about how-tos. And now all of a sudden, I can see about 3 projects that have been 2 years or more in one case that I'm just mentally getting myself ready to start throwing myself at that work, because it's what I want to do for my own reason.
I want to throw in there, I think you're approaching it absolutely correctly, and I would love to be able to have people get insight into each individual, the people that I know on this panel, to get insight into what they're doing. I think it's invaluable for the public, for other peers to hear that, because We live on these islands, in these bubbles, and we need to share this information to help our peers navigate. This isn't about somebody being better, smarter, or anything about. We are here to help one another. I hope we're here to help one another. I hope we're here to help ourselves and help others. I mean, that would be the idea of spending 3 or 4 hours with, quote, complete strangers talking about photography. You're not doing it for your health. You're doing it, or your resume. You're doing it to try to improve yourself and help others. Everyone on this panel has immense value to share. I believe that without question. And it doesn't have to be technical either. And quite the contrary. I think people, and especially you, Dale, I think you should think about coming on over the months and sharing some of the things you're doing. And I don't like to volunteer anybody to do anything. I don't like to be volunteered. I have been a lot in the past, and I don't like it because some things I don't want to do for my own reasons. But I want to encourage people to come on and share their journey, and you would give real insight to people going through. What Dale's got in the future will be incredible. They're going to be the project that I know about is going to be incredibly solid. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be all those things, and it'd be wonderful for you to come in here and share some of those, if you will, as time goes on, because I think it's important that we start communicating a little more rather than just Facebook and posting photos and saying what kind of lights did you use on that. That stuff is just getting so unbelievably ridiculous. I can't stand it, you know? When are we going to have these conversations, really, guys? I mean, when are we going to have the real ones?
The last time, Ken, that I raised the question to you, I'm getting terrible feedback here.
Let me mute myself, Dale. I'm sorry.
There we go. Ah, jeez. Now, does lovely lady upstairs know about that mute button, Quinn? Anyway.
Yes, she does.
Okay. The last time I asked you a question about technical, it had to do with filters, and as you know, way back when I first started in my career, I kind of had a lot of people ticked at me because I was using filters because it was commercial. I had to do something different to create a shtick, and I asked you about filters on UV, and your commentary back was well, try it, and why don't you tell us what happens? Well, you bugger, you knew what was going to happen all along. Did I waste 3 days trying to figure out how to do it? Yeah, I suppose I did, but in actual fact, I loved it because I learned by doing. It's a tactile process. That's what collodion is, and that's what collodion does for me. It gets rid of the RGB and the 256 colors on the screen. It allows me to get back and do it. I'm not quite sure which project. As you know, Quinn, I've got 3 on the go. I think you're probably referring to the William Notman exercise. Yeah, that particular project. I'll be absolutely delighted to tell that story when the time is right. The time just isn't right yet, and the reason being is I'm still in the research phase. It's to me it's incredibly important that I do this right, and perhaps what we were talking earlier about the artist statement. Perhaps this is where I'm transcending over to another level, if you will, where I will have to say why this work is important. And if anyone's not familiar, William Notman was probably, I think I can say this safely, one of the first successful photographers in North America on a commercial sense in the 1860, time escapes me right now, 1860 something, he started the studio, and then he went on and had studios all across North America. So he's probably one of the most important guys, and he came here to my hometown and did something that time, and that's why I'm following up, but I'm not ready yet. The other one, of course, that we're doing is that Quinn is helping me out with immensely on is salt prints, and I have, if people think that they don't review these webinars, I am here to say that's not correct. That particular one on salt prints, it's bookmarked. I don't know how many times I've gone back because it's literally one of the most valuable teaching aids that I have in this particular process. And by the way, Quinn, it works. I'll leave it at that.
Good.
And I'll report more on that when we're ready. But if you want to elaborate, feel free.
Well, I would like to, if you don't mind, because I'm about ready to run some myself. What we're talking about here, Dale and I have been working together for a while. I work with a lot of people, if you haven't assumed that already. I like to. I have a lot of fingers in a lot of people's pies, as it were, and I'm thankful they let me in because I get to learn a lot. I get to explore new ideas. And I'm going to share this with you. Dale and I have been working together, and he started working with me on this a few workshops ago. God, I've done so many now, I can't even remember, but it was a month or 6 weeks ago, maybe. Dale is very interested in salt printing, and obviously he'll unfold that project as it goes along for sure. But he sent me a couple bottles of this, and I love your notepads. I use them all the time now, Dale. He sent me a bottle of this. This is his website, of course. Shout out to DaleWilson.ca. But look at that. Guess what that is, guys? That's seawater from the Atlantic. He lives in Nova Scotia, right off the ocean. It's at the SG is a 152. It's perfect coming out of the ocean. I'm actually going to dip paper into this and salt it and print on it with ocean water. And the previous batch he sent was a little weaker, and we adjusted with a little salt. But now I think we're down where I'm going to run this fairly soon, where he'll be able to supply just straight out of the ocean, if you will. And there's some technique here. He just didn't pull this out. There's some manipulation to it. It's all natural. He just had to concentrate a little more to get it down to a specific salt printing. You need a certain amount of salt to make a salt chloride print. So we're running that. I'm going to run that in the next couple of days, and I have all the confidence in the world it's going to work. And look at that beautiful little element right there. And I'm really the older I get, the more I'm into this. I'm looking more and more to go to the more organic or more natural. I know, and you're talking collodion and ether. What are you talking about? But for these actual materials, I've been printing on hemp paper. Dale's hooked me up with ocean salt water. I mean, there are some really interesting possibilities, quote, brewing to take some of these materials from our wonderful blue marble that we're spinning around on and use it in our process. So I'm excited to try some of that stuff. And the more and more I get into this, the more basic it becomes and the more beautiful it becomes. Jan's taking off. Bye-bye, Jan. Thanks for coming. We'll see you next time.
Thank you very much. Sorry for the interruption. Just to say goodbye and see you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks for coming. Yeah. Anybody want to jump in here with anything else? I can go. Actually, and I'm saying this in confidence, guys. Please don't make a big deal of this. Today is my 52nd birthday, and my wife is taking me to a movie. So we're going to go out and see Revenant.
Yeah. You're going to like it. You're going to have. I want to talk to you about some things about that movie when you get back.
Cool. We have a place here. I live in Aurora, Colorado. So if you look at Denver, Aurora, they can't build west anymore because of the Rocky Mountains. But I'm out east here of the city, 20 minutes from the city center, 25 minutes on a good day. And in Aurora, well, everyone knows about the Aurora shooting, unfortunately, right? The movie theater shooting here, which is tragic as all get up. But they have a theater here close to my house called the Movie Tavern. And it's so awesome. You go online, and they're $7.50 a ticket. You go online, you reserve seats in the theater. Then they come and you order drinks and food off the menu. And you sit in these big, fluffy, nice chairs and eat and watch a movie. How perfect for me, right? So it's a good time.
It's kind of ironic when you're going to be watching somebody surviving, near-death experience in the winter.
Only fast.
Yes, but I know detail about the real, about Hugh Glass. So it's a very interesting contrast to
nice.
The movie, and understand his story is like 50 million times more interesting than the movie. And the movie itself.
Oh, really? Yeah.
There's a lot of native stuff in this film which I feel actually is more powerful than the entire the main story.
Well, that's why I was told to go see it, actually. That part right there, and so I'm glad to hear that confirmation.
I was moved every time that they were in front of the screen. There was stuff that happened. And you're just like, oh
Wow.
my God. So.
Anyone else see? Anyone else saw the movie yet? Anybody? No. I know. Oh, did you like it, Nicholas? Let me see.
I think the cinematography was amazing, and he's known to really. And I must admit, it keeps you on the edge all the time.
Nice.
There's at no point you have time to breathe. Let's put it this way. But it's a good thing. I think it's a great. It'd be interesting to see your point of view, because you probably know the area. I mean, you probably know the whole story better than I do and we do in UK.
Yeah, probably true. Yeah.
But it's beautiful. It's well made, and I think it's honest in its identity with the people, especially the natives, and the whole idea of trapping. You know, I think that's the biggest thing. But it's really much about the love of revenge. If there's love in revenge,
well,
you know?
well,
I understand. I don't want to take away too much, but
well, it's a French word, right? I mean, part of that word, reverend, is ghost or reparation or.
Oh, but no, yeah, no, absolutely, no, absolutely. No, but it'd be interesting. I'd love to hear what you think. It's a good film.
Well, great. Hey, I wanted to ask you guys because we have a pretty good core group of people here that consistently come in. We get between 25 and 50 people in here at any given time. I was wondering, is there any time next month that works better for everyone than not? And just a general consensus, I'm not asking for your schedules. Is Saturday mornings or Saturday evenings the best time for everyone? Just a yeah or yay or nay? Or I'm thinking...
Personally, I take the time. I just think it's such an important forum that I think I'm in UK, so it's your time. If I have to get up early, I think I like to be there if I can, obviously.
Yeah, well, I'm thinking February 20th at 10 a.m. and I'll confirm that up. I'll try to hit the mark and get it firmed up in the next couple of days to give people time to plan. But we'd like to next time have Nicholas, have Jan, and who else was going to come in and show some?
Mark.
Dale.
Dale?
What is he in New York?
Anyone, next show, 10 a.m. Mountain Standard Time or 1800 Central European Time. We'll get everybody in, and then we'll start off with Nicholas and give him the floor for half hour, 45 minutes, whatever he needs, and then solicit response, and then we'll move on to the next person. I think that is one of the most wonderful, beneficial ways we can have this panel and work this panel. I think it'll be awesome.
Can I jump in, Quinn?
Please.
I would like you to unmute Barbara so she can say one word. Otherwise, we've gone through the entire show without her saying anything.
She has to unmute herself.
Well, I thought she could take.
Thanks, Dale.
There we go. Thank you.
We got 2 words out of her. Awesome. She's our moral support here. Yeah.
And I suspect that will be all we're going to get out of her. If no one has gone to her site and checked out her stuff, it's awesome. It's worth the trip. It really is. Still some great work going on there, Barbara. Thanks.
Yeah,
Thank you, Dale.
I recommend everybody looking at each other's work and try to get familiar, because there's a lot of, I mean, Mark Zimmerman's on here. I haven't seen Joe around for a long while. Eric, James is doing great stuff. Dale's working hard. I mean, Nicholas, you know where you're at. And Barbara, we've seen, I mean, I have some familiarity with a lot of people's work here, so I'm privileged and honored to have that. So I have good context for a lot of people in here. So I encourage everyone to do that with each other's work. Look up the name or contact them and say, hey, we have a website or whatever. Everyone here does, though. So.
Can I add something? Actually, I'm looking at Dale. Sorry, Dale. I'm looking at your website now, and do you have a wet plate work?
No, and I wish Quinn had not mentioned my website because it hasn't been updated in about 3 years.
Okay, sorry.
I'm pissed off with the commercial world, if I can be so blunt. So it hasn't been updated. The one I am doing now, though, Nicholas, to be honest, that I'm having some fun with is this guy. I noticed, Quinn, your T-shirt, buddy, is. It doesn't seem to be fitting too well. What I'm doing now is the thing.
In the wash. I wore it for a workshop the other day.
Oh, there you go.
So I wore my Native American today.
Cool. What I'm doing, Nicholas, is just in the processes now of having some fun with a site called Antique Picturology.
Nice.
So I'm having some fun with that, and the T-shirt. I just noticed this, Quinn. When it comes up on screen, man, it's the right way.
I have your smaller here.
You know, people look at me and they see 1851. It's in reverse, and it's in reverse. They say, "Are you dyslexic?" And I will, no. Anyway, so we're having some fun with that at the same time. The reason being for this website, in fact, there you go, there you go.
This is the small one.
There you go. Oh, okay. Hey, how come yours is mine's showing 1851 and yours is showing another way?
It's your camera set.
The reason I've got the website up and running, Nicholas, is, and it's I did it as a soft launch. It's not ready to go full scale yet. Is I am in Canada and it's extremely difficult here to get product used for, if I can be so broad, is the alternative processes. Some of the stuff I'm doing and having a lot of fun with now is working with a former conservator with Parks Canada, and we're printing out frames and head braces and trying to make them in such a fashion that they're going to be very functional, yet hopefully hit a cost point where people can use them and get in for a good price point.
But if I may add something, Dale, I must. Although I'm interested in your weight plate collodion, I must admit, by looking at your site, commercial or not, I take it at what it is. I don't criticize. I just look and I say, well, this is a commercial site. I do commercial as well. So I look at your work and I take it the way it is. Now, every photographer will say, well, you know, it's 5-year-old or 10 million years old, which is true, but actually the pictures is what's really interesting to read being. And I must admit, I've seen some beautiful landscape, and even your portrait, there's a man. I mean, in your national park work, for example, there's some great portraits. So it's good for me to be
talented. Don't let him sell himself short. He's
completely. But that's what I'm saying. Is for me, I look at that and I can see. I mean, obviously, because I've done photography for a while now, I can see the lighting and the purpose and the way you lead. So for me, I appreciate it. But I obviously I quite like to see the other work. But thank you for sharing it.
Yeah, Nicholas, yes. Will you put your URL in the chat so everybody can grab it?
Of course.
We're just sharing URLs in there. And I think this will be a nice. There you go. Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, and that's another thing. Mark just said, I need to do new work. I think, you know, everybody, that's another good reason for this group, and we're not going to do assignments or anything, or let's everybody photograph flowers for next time. We're not going to do that, but you know, it should. I hope it motivates people to make and share some work, and I know after you see Nicholas and Jan and whomever else wants to come on, and James, and Eric, I know, Barbara, all of you guys, once you come on and share work with your peers, your life will begin to change because you'll start getting feedback that's super incredibly valuable, and you're getting it not just from anybody. You're getting it from your peers who are qualified, intelligent, thinking, rational, reasonable human beings. And I know everyone here is
But you know, it's interesting. I'm only going to add something quickly, but it's so interesting because I'll tell you what I really think. But I look at URL, I mean, when I hear the James website, I'm like, oh, come on, it's James Walker. You know what I mean? This is the way I look at it, because I know his work, and I'm like, oh, I love his work.
Yeah.
And Mark, knowing that I've got to talk with Mark next to me, I'm like, yeah, maybe just, nah, forget about it. You know, but no, but it's an interesting that even Mark have to write, God, I have to talk about my own work.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, but hang a minute, and I know you might not see it, and I think this is beautiful in a way, but for me, from the other side, I'm like, come on. I mean, but I'm going to play the little French card, thinking, well, nobody will understand me, I can put my work. But for me, I look at all this work, and I'm like, whoa, okay, this is going to be tough.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? So it's interesting that even the people who I could look up to still think they've got to come with something new. I mean, it's refreshing, and it's encouraging, it's inspiring in that sense. If that makes sense.
I think that's what we should do. We should help one another and inspire one another and motivate one another. I don't you know, people are really strange. I don't know if it's just wet collodion, or I haven't dabbled in many other groups, and no other group as extensively as wet collodion. But there are definitely egos and politics involved in wet collodion, and a lot of people think this is some kind of competition. And I have never, ever seen it as any kind of competition. In fact, as the years go on, I've tried to encourage people to look at it as you know, we're all growing, we're all doing this thing. Nobody has been working in this process like we've been working in it for the last, let's say, 15, 20 years, whatever. But the idea is it's not competitive. It's not, oh, my work isn't, you know, we're man, I'm going to safely say we're all over the age of 30 here, okay? Let's just put it that way. Some are a little older, some are, you know, and we're professionals, and this isn't about being better than one another or anything, or my work isn't as good as hers, or his is better than mine, whatever. I think we should be welcoming to come in and really be open to positive, good, professional, constructive criticism, and I think we can grow. I know I can grow from it. I know I'm going to be, you know, there's a portion of this is a very selfish act to get some of my photographs for that show next year in front of a select few eyes to get some feedback, and that's what I'm going to use this forum for. And I hope you guys can use it for that as well. I hope it's something that's beneficial if you do use it that way.
Quinn, if I could just jump in here, the antique picturology that I put up there, I may have spelled it wrong, because I just went online and it's working, by the way.
Yeah, Mark's got it. He put a good link up for it.
Okay, good. I may have just typed it in wrong. What I wanted to add is on that particular site, even though that's more of a catalog type site, there's also a blog in that section. And what I would love to do with that blog, and I put it out on my Facebook as well.
Oh, yeah.
I want to use that blog as something different, and it's not already been done. And I would, if anyone would like to do an educational type thing, there it is. Put it up there, and if we can use that as a central clearinghouse, if you will.
Oh, that would be neat.
Yeah, it's there. I used to write blogs. I'd have to write as a job. There's nothing more mundane, boring, and unsatisfying that ever existed. They're big, hungry beasts that you have to feed. And I would prefer not to do that. I think if we take this collective of people and if we're doing something new or trying to experiment or explore and whatnot, feel free to flip it to me and I'll put it up there with editorial discretion, of course. You know.
That's great. I think you get some good feedback. I think there's a lot of folks that write me about coming in. You know, since I posted about doing the show today, there's been probably 100 people that responded, including those that came in. But there's a lot of people that are very technical based, and I know they've written they've sent them to me actually, a couple of their experiments with developer, this or that, some other little technical things, adding sulfuric acid to developer and different little things like that, silver bath stuff. And I'll start encouraging them to send them to you, and you can put them up on your site. By the way, I just got, it's semi-confirmed, it looks like I will be in Canada this year. At the end of in the fall, I'll be in Vancouver.
It's only 5,000 kilometers from me, dude.
Yeah, I know.
It's shorter for me to go visit Barbara than it is you.
Yeah, exactly. But I should be up there. I'm going to be doing. I'll do some kind of symposium lecture, and then I'll do some workshops up there in Vancouver. Right now. It's looking like a September time frame. We'll firm that up as time goes on. Also, I had another person that was going to come in here today. Her name is Lynn Bergman, Wilson Bergman. She runs the photographic formulary in Montana. I think I'm going to go up there for a week and teach in June. I don't know what they've got going on, but I was hoping she would be in. She could talk a little bit about it. I haven't actually spoken to her. I've only talked to her once on the phone. She was supposed to contact me, but there's some things coming up, and you know, yeah, anything you want to throw out here and share and pitch or whatever you want to do, if you got some events or whatever. But I'm looking forward to doing some critiques and getting some giving and receiving some feedback. And does anyone else have anything? I think I'm going to call that a day. I'm going to go get ready for my movie. My movie and my lunch, I should say.
The only thing I would add real quick is that I actually haven't felt any I don't think that there is any competition either. Like I haven't felt that at all here, and that's really I started feeling it in the chat. I was like, okay, I got to get out of that chat. But
well, that's what I told you. You guys bring it out here. Just have a conversation about whatever it is. I think written versus spoken and body language is about 70% of our language. You know, some people think I'm the greatest thing since sliced bread, and then others think I'm the devil incarnate, right? So it's this wide chasm. People meet me and say, "Oh my God, you're so friendly. I thought you were an asshole." Okay, no, I hope I'm not. You know, I mean, it's a different experience. You know, to have.
There's also an accountability that's immediate. When you have things
you mean you're not an asshole?
Sometimes I am. Sometimes I gotta admit. I mean, I am human, so that would qualify me to be one. So, anyway, hey, there you go.
So on Mark's comment, you don't. I started in my first life as a musician. I was a vocalist with actually as a backup vocalist with Simon and Garfunkel. Yes, I am that old. And it was they that suggested I should become a photographer. So no, you do not want to hear me sing "Happy Birthday" to Quinn, is what I'm getting at.
Oh no! Oh no! And then we get charged $10,000 for using the song, right? The rights.
Oh no, buddy, you have not heard "Bridge Over Troubled Waters" until I start singing.
I love Simon and Garfunkel. Loved him as a kid, and I still. Paul Simon's awesome, I think. But regardless, irregardless is not a word. Well, thank you, Nicholas. You need 51. Hey guys, it's been wonderful. I appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. A big hug. I appreciate your participation. I hope to see all your wonderful, beautiful faces next time. And hang in there. I'm going to try to plan for the 20th of February, and maybe it'll be somebody else's birthday, and we can sing happy birthday to them. I'm good with birthdays. I've had enough now. It's not a big deal to me. But I will get a movie and a lunch out of it. So take care, guys.